Hello guys, this is your friend Shinobi Nexix 2.0 and we are back in new fanfic. What if Naruto and Hinata were banished from Konoha and became the Emperor and Empress of the West Part 3? Naruto's Journal. Entry 1. Can't believe that it's been a year since Hinata and I had granted the 4 clan heads asylum, and a lot has happened since then. Where to begin? In the 6 months since they had arrived, the Hyuga and the Ino Cho had integrated themselves into the empire without incident. First off is the younger Ino Cho. Just like Inara, Shikamaru and Tamari had become a couple. Once Gaara found out about this while inspecting the Suna consulate, Shikamaru led him on a chase throughout the imperial capital, Gaara trying to catch him with his sand so he could crush him. It took both Tamari and Kankuro to calm him down, Tamari explaining that both her and Shikamaru were dating, and has been for quite some time. Even I did not know about them being a couple until recently, which did not surprise me in the least. Like I said in the meeting regarding the refugees, the Nara are attracted to, and can attract, feisty women. For Ino, she enjoys being a medic nin. Both her and Karen had struck up a friendship while Ino studied under Hinata. What was more surprising was the fact that Ino is now dating Haku. Which led to Inoichi chasing down the ice user throughout the streets of Kimen when he found out. It took both Zabuza and Ibiki to calm the Yamanaka clan head down. Zabuza would be very displeased if his adopted son ended up with irreversible brain damage. Choji works with his dad in the Shinobi Affairs Division alongside Shikaku. The Akamaiki also reopened their restaurant in Kimen, which has become a popular eatery in the imperial capital. Inoichi and his wife also reopened their flower shop, with Inoichi's wife running the business while he is away working with Zabuza and Ibiki. Of course, this doesn't mean that the Ino Cho has broken up. Far from it, the younger team has made a name for themselves in the West. As it turned out, Hayate Okajima had taken an interest in the trio following a shogi match inside a parlor house in Kimen with Shikamaru, and became the de facto sensei to the Ino Cho. Honestly, I don't know what Asuma had been teaching them, but under the Tengu, their teamwork has drastically improved tenfold. The Pakara merchant house has them on call when it comes to escorting caravans all over the empire when they defended it against a group of bandits in the southern region. Tenten is now a member of the Hellcat unit, having survived the hell of Hellcat training, trust me, I know, as Yugito is a certified sadist. She is now the shinobi weapons expert for the Hellcats. She also works at the Himura weapons shop and spars with Miho Himura on occasion. Following the 6-month probation period, in which Hinata, the council and myself had formally welcomed the 4 clans into the empire, both her and Neji had gotten engaged. Following the 2-on-1 match against Takeshi Chiba, Rock Lee was approached by a retired shinobi who had fought alongside me in the Unification Wars. His name was Jun Fan, and he was a taijutsu expert in the Goken style. Rock Lee was very interested in learning the advanced style taught to him by Maeda Guy. Even though Rock Lee still sprouted his springtime of youth shtick on occasion, he has developed into his own person, and not into a mini-guy clone. He still wears green, but thank the gods that it's no longer spandex. Hiyashi has taken Neji under his wing, and has trained him in the advanced Jiyukenpo techniques. Hinata had formally recognized Hanabi as the Hyuga clan heiress and Hanabi made Neji her second in command of the clan. It will be a couple of years, but Hanabi will be a strong head of the Hyuga clan. By the way, did I forget to mention that Hinata is pregnant? Yeah, Hinata is pregnant. I won't go into details, but it was after the Unification Festival that we ended up in bed. 3 days after, the tests came back in, and Hinata told me while in bed one morning. When we broke the news that day during the meeting with the Imperial Council, and guess what happened? A fight broke out between the council members over who would be the godparent of our child. I allowed this to continue for another minute before I called the meeting to order and announced that Spring Daimyo Kazuhana already had called dibs on her being the godmother for our child in exchange for Hinata and I being godmother for her child. That deflated the council at first. But then, a second fight took place over who would be the godparent over the second child Hinata and I would most likely have. Seriously, most of the time, they are not usually like this. Hinata's Diary. Entry 1. Naruto and I are officially parents. It's been 3 days since our return from the hospital. Outside, I can hear the celebrations continue, the people of the empire celebrating the birth of our child. Our first child was a boy. The Namikaze dynasty has its heir to the throne. Naruto and I named him after his father, Minato. Minato Uzumaki Namikaze. As it turns out, I wasn't the only one pregnant. Tenten was also pregnant at the time, but she was 3 weeks along before me. Neji was the father. She had her child about 5 weeks before mine. Neji and Tenten agreed to name him after his late father, Hizashi. Hizashi had the Byakugan. Minato didn't. More than likely, he will have the Rinnegan. If we have a second child, they would more than likely have the Byakugan. Dad, on the other hand, couldn't be any more happier. He has a grandson and a grandnephew to spoil. Kota and Kokura were virtual godsends in helping me with my impending motherhood. Aside from them, the council visited Naruto and I to check out little Minato and offer their best wishes. Right now, Koyuki Kazuhana is here, staying in the palace, like she always does whenever she arrives, and she is giddy with delight. She and Naruto are doting over Minato at the moment. When Minato was born, Naruto made a promise to me. He promised that he will always be there for his child. My response was that I will hold him to that promise. Naruto's Journal. Entry 2. Just returned from Konoha, where I retrieved the ashes of my parents. This marks the second time I visited my old home. The first was when I killed both Koharu and Hanmura and issued my warning to Danzo. The Anbu disguise worked the last time around, so after midnight, I snuck into the cemetery and retrieved their remains. I could have returned to the west then, but my old pranking habits re-emerged with a vengeance. So I raided the armory and pilfered it of every single exploding tag and placed them on the Hokage monument, after spiking the old hag's sake with laxatives. When I discovered I had some left over, I also placed them inside Ichiraku's ramen stand as payback for serving me poison-laced ramen on my birthday up until my banishment. Once the tags were secured, I retreated back to my father's estate and used the Hiraishin to teleport myself out of the village. Once I had a nice view of the village, I activated the tags. The two Senju's heads were the first to go, followed by Sarutobi's image. It was sad to see my father's head blow up, but I felt great satisfaction in seeing the pieces of the old hag's face crash onto the Hokage tower. I retreated back to the west via the Demon's Gate, my mission complete. I presented the remains of my parents to the council, and told them that I blew up the Hokage monument out of pure spite. With the damage I done, the mountain would be pretty much useless to use for a monument in the future. The remains of both my mother and father were buried in the Uzumaki crypt in a private ceremony attended only by myself and Hinata, Takuma Uzumaki and the Uzumaki clan. Takuma took me to the side and thanked me for returning the remains of the Uzumaki princess and her husband. A couple of days later, Fu dropped off several communiques from our information network in the east. Captain Asahina reported that the village of Konoha was under martial law following my visit. As it turned out, I was not the only one inside the village. Itachi Uchiha decided to visit and screw with his brother. The detonation of the explosive tags on the Hokage monument provided the distraction for Itachi to escape. Whoops. As it turns out, the destruction of the Hokage monument was blamed on Itachi and the Akatsuki. No matter, the Uchiha traitor has his own part to play. Entry 3. Led a personal expedition to Whirlpool Country consisting of myself, Takuma Uzumaki and the four devas in order to retrieve several hidden Uzumaki scrolls. Hinata remained behind in the west with Minato, as did Kurama. The reason being is that I wanted to smoke Obito out of his hiding place. No, I don't plan on killing him, yet. Just a friendly chat. Obito probably knows that I have the Jinchuriki, but cannot risk coming to the west, as even he knows that he does not stand a chance against the Imperial forces there, despite his own advantages. But if I was in the east and allowed Zetsu to notify him that I was in Whirlpool, then he would come. Obito did not disappoint. He showed up, along with Itachi Uchiha, Kisame Hoshigaki, Hidan and Kazuku. Sasori and Deidara remained behind at one of their many bases. Our little confrontation proved to be very interesting, to say the least. Flashback. Ruins of Uzushiogakure no Sato, Whirlpool Country, 3 days earlier. Cage-style hat covering his face, dressed in his standard shinobi uniform with black flak vest and haori, Naruto was ready for a fight. The four devas, Kentaro, Rasu, Sadako and Kaide, flanked their emperor as the Akatsuki emerged from the shadows opposite of the Imperial group. First was Sasuke's brother, Itachi Uchiha. His partner, Kisame Hoshigaki stood beside him, sizing up Kentaro and his massive broadsword. But Naruto knew that the walking sushi plate was still smarting from when he had taken Utakata from both him and the Uchiha. Next were the zombie brothers, Hidan and Kakuzu. The last time around, Sadako had fought Hidan, while Rasu fought the miserly Kazuku. The last time around, Kakuzu had 3 of his 5 hearts destroyed, while Hidan was nearly burnt to a crisp. Last, was the one whose actions had put his life into motion. His father's former student, Hitaki's former teammate, Obito Uchiha. Sasori and Deidara were absent, as they were back in aim with Konan and Nagato. The Akatsuki mastermind watched the Emperor and the four devas with a wary, calculating eye. Obito was furious that this upstart had intercepted the Jinchuriki, this bringing the Moon Eye plan to a screeching halt. But he also knew that the Emperor was an unknown wielding the same dojutsu he had implanted into Nagato. And these 4 warriors who stood alongside the Emperor were in most cases, even stronger than the Akatsuki. Obito took a seat on another overturned pillar and faced the Emperor. Looking around the ruins for a moment, he turned his attention back to the Emperor. So, you're the Emperor of the West, I assume. Good assumption, Naruto replied. And you are the supposed leader of this motley crew of S-class missing nin. I am, Obito confirmed. You know, you are not what I expected from someone who has united the West. I was expecting someone much older. Sorry to disappoint you, Naruto said. Obito folded his arms across his chest. Where are the Jinchuriki? Safe within the Empire. Safe from those who wish to use them as weapons. But most importantly, safe from you and your plans. I seek only to bring about an everlasting peace, Obito said. You and I are the same. Only difference is your method of peace involves robbing the people of their free will, Naruto said. Oh yes, I know all about Operation Moon Eye. Even though he could not see it, Obito's eye narrowed. How do you know about that? There is not a whole lot I don't know about the plan, the Emperor replied. Or about you for that matter. I know that Tobi is not your real name. I also know that Madara Uchiha is dead as a doornail and that you are certainly not him. One hand reached up and removed the cage-style hat. Had it not been for the hair color being different, he would have been a spitting image of Minato Namikaze. It did give both Obito and Itachi a cause for alarm. Minato. Impossible, Obito said, taken aback. You died. Yondaime. You live, Itachi whispered. Wrong on both counts, Naruto said, looking at Obito. We have met before. I was but a newborn, only several minutes old. You came for the 9 tails that was inside my mother. You just did not expect my father to seal the fox inside of me, didn't you? Obito Uchiha. Itachi blinked. The head of the Akatsuki was a fellow clan member thought to have died. Obito ignored the fallen Uchiha prodigy as he focused on Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki, you've grown. That I agree, Naruto replied. Despite Sarutobi's attempts to stunt my growth, despite the fact that they pissed on my father's final wishes, and despite the betrayal of my former self and my godparents, yes, I have grown. Without the village to hold me back, I have grown indeed. Strong enough to become the Emperor of the West, Itachi noted. I'll say, Hidan seconded. Who knew the little could reach such potential? So much blood he had spilled in order to get to where he is. Jashin would have been pleased. Amazing what hard work can do. Something that your brother has failed to realize, Naruto said, causing Itachi to wince slightly. But what I want to know is this, you were part of my father's cell. Why did you betray my father? Let's get one thing straight, Obito replied defensively. I had nothing but the utmost respect for Minato, both as a shinobi and as a leader. Even after Madara had shown me the truth in regards to the Uchiha and the Senju, I still respected him, because he gave me a chance. But in the end, he was so damn honorable, even going as far as to seal the fox inside your body, as he would not want no other child to be subject to the life of a Jinchuriki. The masked man paused for a moment. Their deaths were but a minor setback for the greater plans of the Akatsuki. But you, on the other hand, have brought what Madara wanted, what I wanted in danger. You may call Operation Moon's-Eye what you want, but all I want is a world free of war, of suffering, an end to the tears. With the Uchiha leading the world in an era of so-called peace, Naruto snorted. Better us than the Senju, Obito rebuked. You yourself can bear witness to that, Naruto. I know that Tsunade was your great aunt, as well as your godmother. I know she blames you for your mother's death just as Jiraiya blames you for the death of Minato. You have gotten strong, even stronger than Sasuke. Even without the fox, you have gotten stronger. In effect, you owe me. I made you what you are today. If it wasn't for me, you would be stagnating in Konohagakure no Sato, just like Sasuke is right now. And it would be a shame to have you as my enemy when I can have you as my ally instead. Naruto ed an eyebrow. Your father was my teacher, Obito continued. I can be a teacher to you, a mentor. I can show you how to master the Rinnegan, to master the six paths. You have the potential to become even greater than your father, than the other Hokages before and after him. You becoming Emperor of the West is proof of that. Join me, Naruto. Join me and we can lift the web of lies. We can crush the leaf once and for all. You have an interesting point, Naruto said. But, I must decline, as your crimes are too great. Crimes? What crimes? Obito asked. Naruto ticked off Obito's offenses on his fingers. You used the Sharingan on Yagura and incited a bloodline purge upon the innocent people of Mist in an attempt to eliminate those who would be a threat to the Uchiha and the Sharingan in the long run. You tried to use the Jinchuriki, the closest I have as brothers and sisters, in a plan for world domination. But your greatest crime is that you robbed me of my parents. He stood up. My parents know that it was you who had done this. They also know about the Sanin's betrayal. So consider this my solemn pledge. I will not only wipe Konoha off the map, with Sasuke as the catalyst for Konoha's destruction, but I will also exterminate your organization, and I will crush the remnant of the Uchiha clan. Itachi will die, as will Sasuke, and you. End flashback. Obito did not take my declaration very well. The Akatsuki attacked. I and the four Devas fought back. Hidan had taken on Kaide, Kisame fought Kentaro, Sadako and Kakuzu mixed it up, and Itachi wanted a rematch against Rasu. I fought Obito. His time-space jutsu had started to get annoying, until I got close enough to slap a seal on him which nullified it, thus making the battle a bit more even. Obito wielded a katana and Madara's battle fan. I had only my katana. Bless you, Sanshi, for teaching me Ido. And bless you, Zabuza for teaching me Kenjutsu. I think Obito was very much surprised that I was at his level, or in my case, exceeded it. He did tag me with a couple of good shots, while I destroyed his mask. Obito, seeing that he could not win, ordered the others to retreat, after seeing that his members had been defeated once again. The message had been sent. The son of the Yondaime is back. And he is gunning for you. Entry 4. War is imminent for Suna. I should start from the beginning. Hinata and I were in Suna on an inspection tour of the Suna branch of the Pakara merchant house, and to receive intel regarding Konoha, Orochimaru and the Akatsuki. Honestly, I did not expect two of the Akatsuki to try and kidnap Gaara. The mad bomber from Iowa, Deidara and Chiyo's grandson, the mad puppeteer Sasori of the Red Sands. Sometimes, it sucks being the emperor. Deidara and Sasori had planned this well, I have to admit. A sleeper agent named Yura served as one of Gaara's advisors, slaughtered the entire guard assigned to guard Suna's gates. I confronted him along with Baki shortly after Deidara and Sasori infiltrated. He was strong, but he was no match for me. Once he was dealt with, I took on Sasori. God, did that guy love his puppets. He even went as far as to make his own body as one in an attempt at eternal youth. Sasori was very surprised to see that I was the Emperor of the West. That was all I needed. One fiery Rasenshuriken later and his attack puppets were reduced to carbon, with Sasori himself crippled to the point that he begged for his life. Too bad that I was not in a forgiving mood as I crushed his heart under my heel and incinerated his remains. With Sasori dead and gone, I had to see how Gaara was making out with Deidara. I arrived just in time to see Deidara on the back of a giant clay bird dodging Gaara's sand. Too bad Deidara did not see my wife on a Niabi roof, nor that Gaara was manipulating him into moving closer to Hinata. When Deidara was close enough, Hinata struck. I think I'm rubbing off on her. She leapt into the air and blasted him off of his clay bird with a scorching deadly tempest. As she fell back to the earth, I caught her while Gaara caught Deidara in his sand. One sand burial later, and Deidara was no more. I had a feeling that Zetsu had seen the battle and had hightailed it out of Suna to report it to Obito. Which meant that we will soon have an invasion on our hands. I told Gaara that if I was Obito, I would invade Suna. He agreed with me and began to mobilize his forces. Hinata and I returned to the west. I called an emergency meeting of the Imperial Council and told them of the impending invasion and of my intentions to help Gaara. The council agreed, and with their blessings, I mobilized 4 battalions, 2 shinobi battalions and 2 samurai battalions. Not taking any chances, Hinata had also mobilized the Imperial Logistics and Medical Division, as she expected the number of wounded shinobi to be very high. I also summoned Zabuza and his demon brigade. Zabuza was more than happy to get in on the impending action. The 4 devas, Cell 9 and the younger Ino Shika Cho also volunteered. But that would not be enough. I needed more backup. Which is why I summoned the Jinchuriki. Flashback. House of Sovereigns, Council Chambers. The Emperor and Empress consort of the Western Empire sat in their chairs as the Jinchuriki, and one freed Biju Queen, stood before them. Following the deaths of both Sasori and Deidara in Suna, it was made clear that an Akatsuki invasion of Suna was imminent. With only 72 hours to prepare for the impending invasion of Suna, Naruto had to work fast. Naruto had already mobilized 4 battalions of the Imperial Defense Force and they were primed and ready. The Ino Shika Cho trio and Cell 9 were also summoned and ready to enter into the fray. Naruto looked at the Jinchuriki assembled. To him, they were the closest thing he had as siblings, given their connection to being Biju containers. In less than 3 days, Gaara and Suna will be attacked by the Akatsuki. With the exception of Sasori and Deidara, who have been killed by Hinata, Gaara and myself, the entire gang from Itachi Uchiha to Konan and the 6 Paths are coming to play. Even worse, they are backed by 100,000 white Zetsu clones. What does this have to do with us? Han grumbled. I plan on going to war against the Akatsuki, Naruto continued. I plan on wiping them out once and for all. The reason why all of you are here is that I am asking you to come with me to Suna. Given your past problems with the Akatsuki in regards to your Biju, I'd figure that you would want some payback. If you refuse, then I will not hold it against you, and you will be free to leave. The Jinchuriki looked at one another, conversing with each other for a moment. Yugito was the first to speak. I've fought alongside you and Hinata for a long time. As long as I can bring my Hellcats to the party, I'm in. Granted, Naruto confirmed. Ah, what the hell, Utakata said, shrugging his shoulders. I'll come as well. Same here, Fu seconded. We'll take these punks to the pain, kill or be wrapped, causing the others to sweat drop. Show 'em that the West plays no games. You did save both Han and myself from the Akatsuki, Roshi said. For that, we owe you big. I'm game. Han nodded his consent. Payback sounds good. Real good. Count me in. And you, Kurama? Naruto asked. The red-headed woman shrugged her shoulders. No need to ask me that question, kid. Obito and I have some unfinished business. So long as you don't kill him, Naruto said. Just beat him within an inch of his life. I want him alive enough so I can take his head myself. End flashback. Say what you want about Kurama, but she proved to be very helpful in transporting 4 battalions, plus 3 special forces teams and the remaining Jinchuriki to Suna en masse. When I returned, Gaara had been busy. He had evacuated the civilians out of the city and into several fallback positions out of harm's way. Suna was made into a virtual fortress. To anyone from the elemental countries who is watching, you will bear witness and see what happens when you decide to screw with the unified West and her allies. This will give you pause and to rethink your line of thought. Hinata's diary. The battle is over. The Suna Imperial forces have won. The Akatsuki have been annihilated. 100,000 Zetsu clones, along with Obito and Itachi Uchiha, Kisame Hoshigaki, the Zombie Brothers and the 6 Paths of Pain, against 6,500 Suna ninja, 50,000 Imperial soldiers, 6 Jinchuriki and 1 freed-tailed beast. Sounds like a suicide battle, right? Well, my husband was once known as the unpredictable, knuckle-headed ninja of Konoha. And as emperor, he still lives up to his title. Gaara had declared most of the city expendable. Suna can always rebuild, he surmised. Kurama vowed to deal with Obito personally, while Naruto decided to deal with Itachi. The consulate had been transformed into a triage center and the Yamada clan were renowned for their healing jutsu. Naruto had ordered me to remain at the Cage Tower. I refused. Where you go, I go, I told him, giving him no room to argue with me. He sighed and allowed me to come with him. The gathered forces of Suna and the Empire were in the streets, ready for the battle. Seeing as how I had fought alongside him, I know how Naruto works. He has that charisma that makes people believe in him, which is why the Imperial forces will follow him even into the depths of hell. This is where we fight. This is where they die. The Akatsuki will be crushed once and for all. Give them nothing, but take from them everything. The Imperial forces and the Suna ninja broke into cheers, raising their weapons into the air. Naruto sure knows how to work the crowd, to pump them up full of confidence. It was midnight when the Akatsuki came. They came in through the gates which had been destroyed earlier by Deidara, led by Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hoshigaki. Naruto and Gaara had encountered the first half of the Zetsu clones. Naruto created 200 shadow clones and brought down a quarter of the Zetsu clones using the Hirishin, followed by Gaara crushing a sizable portion with the sand burial. As the second wave of clones came charging in, led by Obito himself, Naruto pulled out his trump card. He unleashed the Jinchuriki upon the Akatsuki. Obito had expected to capture them one at a time. But he wasn't expecting all of them to be fighting in this battle. While Kurama went after Obito, Naruto fought Itachi. The battle between the fallen Uchiha and my husband was indeed brutal. Naruto would tell me about it shortly afterward. An epic battle of swords, fists and jutsu. One city block was incinerated with Itachi's Amaterasu alone. Another was razed to the ground by Naruto's deadly tempest. But Naruto would gain the upper hand in the battle when he feigned weakness and allowed Itachi to transport him inside Tsukuyomi. Then he activated his Rinnegan and released himself from Tsukuyomi by using a specialized seal he had created. During the battle, he had gotten close enough to slip it on Itachi's back. It also had the desired effect of destroying Itachi's Sharingan eyes. Naruto retrieved his sword and disemboweled Itachi. Kurama, in the meantime, had beaten Obito within an inch of his miserable life and ripped out the Rinnegan. She would not kill him, as Naruto deserved some payback for what he had done to his family. Zabuza also came out on top in his match against Kisame. He was injured after Kisame scratched him with Samahata, but he would survive. Zabuza's demon unit left a path of destruction in their wake. A and B were pretty much indestructible together, as the pile of Zetsu corpses could attest to the fact. Yugito and her Hellcats showed no mercy. The Ino Shika Cho trio and Cell 9 had a combined total of 300 kills. Both Rock Lee and Neji were injured in the battle and were taken to the Cage Tower to be treated. Hayate Okajima would be pleased greatly as to how the Ino Shika Cho had came out. Jun Fan and Hiyashi would be proud of Rock Lee and Neji respectively. The four Devas took on the six paths in Konan. Nagato had attempted to destroy Suna with a Shinra Tensei, but was stopped by Kintaro and Rasu. Kintaro had heaved Rasu towards the human path and electrocuted him. Chakra rods also are excellent conductors for electricity, so much so that the feedback ended up killing Nagato. The elite guards had defended the Kazakage Tower along with Tamari and Konkuro. Utakata and Fu also assisted in defending the tower. Han and Roshi were like a force unleashed. Han's steam armor made him invulnerable to Zetsu's attacks. I think those two killed more than the rest of the Jinchuriki combined. Like Naruto, Gaara was on the front lines, enveloping the Zetsu clones in mass sand coffins, and destroying them with the sand burials. Shukaku had boosted Gaara's killing abilities 100-fold. While Naruto was fighting Itachi, I assisted the elite guards. My kill tally was up to 120 Zetsu clones. Not too shabby if I say so myself. After Naruto had eliminated Itachi, he reunited with Gaara and the others, and pushed the remaining Zetsu clones into the town center. Out of a force of 100,000 clones, only 300 remained. Naruto gave the order, destroy them all. And that we did. Once Naruto and Gaara had claimed victory, Naruto had retreated to the Cage Tower. Once behind closed doors, he passed out from chakra exhaustion. Gaara and I carried him to the Kazakage office, and allowed him to rest. The Akatsuki invasion of Suna is officially over. Snafu's notes. An early Christmas gift to my fans. Sunagakur no Sato, Wind Country, 3 days after the conclusion of the Akatsuki invasion of Suna. It would be 3 days before Naruto regained consciousness. Oh, my head. His headache was soon gone as he felt the effects of the mystic palm jutsu. He recognized that touch in an instant. Hinata. Yes, love, it's me. Naruto slowly opened his eyes. He found himself stretched out on the couch inside the Cage's office. Hinata was by his side, looking just as worn out as he was. The Emperor rose to a seated position. How long was I out? Almost 3 days. It's early evening, Hinata replied. You should take it easy, Naruto. You're still exhausted. I know. My reserves are at least half full, so I should be okay. What's been happening? Hinata sat down next to him. After the battle, I sent back word to the west that we had won. Ryuji and Haruka had ordered all Pakara merchants in the area to deliver food and aid to Suna. The Pakara merchant house has been busy around the clock. Remind me to send a thank you note to the Shinzens, Naruto replied. Anything else? Gaara's placed all of Suna under martial law, Kurama said as she entered the office, followed by Gaara, Shikamaru and the Sand siblings. Glad to see you're awake, Kit. Hinata has been by your side for the past couple of days. I noticed, Naruto replied. The others, the Jinchuriki, all are alive and accounted for, Shikamaru replied. Obito is under heavy guard around the clock. Congratulations, Namikaze. You have won a great victory. Naruto shook his head. No, we all did. I can't take the credit. We all fought long and hard, and against a powerful enemy. He stood up. Hinata had his cage-style hat in his hands. He graciously accepted it and placed the hat over his head. Gaara stepped up and extended his hand. Lord Namikaze. Congratulations. Naruto shook it. Same to you, Lord Casecage. He looked at his clothes. Is there a place where I can clean myself up? I can't go out looking like this in front of my people. Tamari, show the Emperor our guest quarters, he said. Of course, Gaara. To Naruto, she said, follow me. Inside of the guest bedroom, Naruto, from the waist up, sat on the edge of the bed, fresh and clean from the shower while Hinata conducted an impromptu physical on her husband. Hinata knew every part of Naruto's body both figuratively and literally, which is why she had become his unofficial physician. Byakugan activated, Hinata checked Naruto's body for any and all internal injuries. Naruto's body had a myriad of cuts, scrapes and bruises. Even though Kurama was no longer his tenant, he still had the healing factor, a parting gift from the Nine Tails, which came in pretty handy, and still proved to be useful even now. Despite being the Emperor of the West, he was a hands-on type of ruler, which earned him the respect and admiration of his council, his subordinates and subjects. The battle with Itachi and Obito had taken a lot out of him, and he would not be ready to travel for a couple of days, which meant that he would have to wait until his chakra reserves were back to full capacity. Shikamaru, Nara and Tamari were going over the reports following the battle. Half of Suna is wrecked from the battle, but it's nothing that we can't overcome, Tamari said. Casualties? Naruto asked. Shikamaru looked over the reports. 0 dead, over 1,000 wounded from the Imperial forces. 0 dead from Suna, about 500 wounded. The hospital here was full to capacity, so Matsuri ended up using those buildings which survived the battle as triage centers for the extra wounded. The Suna and Imperial medics are working in 12-hour shifts to make sure that the injured are treated and taken care of. Medical supplies? Naruto asked, wincing slightly as Hinata poked a sore spot on his arm. Not a problem, seeing as we have a nice little surplus on reserve, Hinata replied as Naruto winced slightly. Did that hurt? A little, but I've been through worse, Naruto said. To Shikamaru, he asked, how you and your teammates holding up? Bit troublesome, but we'll live, Chief, the shadow user replied. I've read the reports on the battle, and I am glad to say that all that training under Okajima has paid off, Naruto said. Both your team and Cell 9 have gone beyond the call of duty, and you both will be recognized for your actions in not only saving Suna, but also stopping the Akatsuki and more importantly, thwarting a fourth shinobi war. Thanks, Shikamaru deadpanned. The both of you are dismissed, Hinata said. Once Shikamaru and Tamari were gone, Hinata deactivated her Byakugan and continued to inspect her husband, stopping to retrieve a small canister of healing salve and rubbing it all over the various bruises. Your injuries could have been a whole lot worse, she said. Given who my opponents were, I'm not surprised, Naruto replied. I faced down 2 Uchiha. One's dead, and the other will be executed once we return home. He turned his head in order to look at his wife. I thought that medics were to stay away from the battle. I'm not like any medic nin, Hinata replied. I am the Empress consort of the Western Empire. But most important of all, I am your wife, and I fight by your side. Seeing as how you conceal my chakra with your gentle fist, as well as causing untold levels of pain on my body, I know better not to disagree with you, Naruto deadpanned. Hinata smiled. Smart move, she said, pecking him on the nose. There. Done. She closed the jar of salve and placed it back inside her pouch. Nothing broken, thankfully. Naruto nodded as he finished getting dressed. The knock on the door came as Naruto finished dressing up in his battle uniform, the mesh shirt, black pants and ninja sandals. The black flak vest was partially covered by the black haori with the red flame pattern on the tail ends, the 4 symbols seal on his back in red. Whenever he was leading into battle, his hair was styled in spikes, similar as to how his father would usually wear it, rather than being combed back. He wore no hitai, but reached for his cage-style hat instead. Hinata turned to the door. Come in. The door opened and in walked a battered Fu. Chief. Lady Hinata. What is it, Fu? Naruto asked, turning around. I received word from the Pekara outpost at the Wind-Fire border. Konoha shinobi are on the way here, Fu reported. Naruto looked at Hinata, whose expression mirrored that of his own. They must have heard about the Akatsuki invading and want to try and get back on Gaara's good side, Naruto surmised. Too bad the battle's over. Turning back to Fu, he asked, how many are coming? At least 200 Junin. We managed to identify some of them who are coming. Both of your former senseis and cells have been identified. The others are Asuma Sarutobi, Maida Guy, and Yamato. The Godime and Jiraiya are leading the mission personally. We put their time of arrival at least 4 days from now. That caused Naruto to pause. Once again, the Emperor looked at his wife. Looks like playtime is officially over, Naruto said. Hinata nodded. I agree. It's time to reveal ourselves to our former village, she said. No more hiding. To Fu she said, you're dismissed. Fu nodded and returned to the imperial consulate in the village. 4 days later, the city gates had been blown off, the city walls had cracks, crevasses and holes. Bodies of Zetsu clones littered the area surrounding the city gates as Tsunade and the Konoha envoy approached the gates. The Konoha ninja identified the Suna ninja by their style of flak vests. Squads of Suna Junin and Imperial troops were hard at work rounding up the bodies and burning them in several giant pyres. The Konoha envoy passed several of them as they approached the gates. Pekara merchants led their caravans into and out of the city, dropping off food and aid. What surprised Tsunade and the others was as they approached the city walls, they noticed the number of tents located on one side of the city gates, the Imperial forces having made camp, since Suna was too small for the Imperial forces to contain. They could hear the laughter and the music coming from the camp, as the Imperial soldiers recounted their heroic feats of not only themselves, but of their emperor, the Empress consort, the Kazekage, and of the Suna ninja, of which the Imperial forces have grown to respect. Tsunade frowned. From what Jiraiya had told her, it took them nearly a week to reach the west by boat, and half that time by airship. And yet, here were Imperial shinobi in and around Suna. Jiraiya's expression matched that of his former teammate as he looked at the number of Imperial shinobi and samurai. The spy network reported that with the number of white Zetsu clones combined with the 6 paths of pain and the remaining members of the Akatsuki participating in this battle, Suna's chances of coming out of this alive were nil. The number of Imperial forces here could mean one thing, Jiraiya said as they approached the gates. Either the Emperor or someone on his side is highly skilled in time-space ninjutsu. Tsunade nodded. It seems that way, she said. With the deaths of Kaharu and Hanmura, their power and influence had returned to Tsunade. The two elders had always supported the civilian side of the council, and with the both of them gone, the influenced civilian side of the council once had was now all but crippled. I don't care about these people, Sasuke snarled, dressed in his Anbu uniform, Chikudo slung behind his back. Itachi is here, and I don't care who stands in my way. I want Itachi's head on a stake. Had Sasuke and the others were paying attention, they would have noticed a burning pyre that was being tended to by the imperial troops. Had Sasuke been paying attention, they would have seen the bodies of Kazuku, Konan, Nagato, as his body was recovered from a megakure, the Six Paths, Kisame Hoshigaki and Itachi Uchiha being fed to the flames. Asuma Sarutobi approached the gates of the village with apprehension. The reason being was that his former students were working with the Suna guards at the gate, signing in the Pakara caravans as they entered the village. The Ino Shika Cho looked just as worn out and battered from the war, but alert and ready for anything. Naruto had summoned both their team and Cell Guy into a private meeting, warning them of Konoha's impending arrival earlier that day, and told them that Konoha would soon be arriving on Suna's doorstep and of his and Hinata's plans to reveal themselves to their former village. He also told them that if they did not wish to see the impending fight, then they can remain inside the Cage Tower until the matter is concluded. Cell 9 chose to remain inside, as Neji, Tenten and Rock Lee refused to have any further dealings with Guy. That and both Neji and Rock Lee were still wounded, and since the triage centers were full to capacity, Gaara allowed the both of them to recover inside his home. For Asuma, it had been 2 years since the last time he had seen his former cell. He believed in Konoha, and that in order for Konoha to be recognized as the strongest of the shinobi villages, then sacrifices must be made. That was why he had supported the banishment of Uzumaki, and the CRA. But Konoha's actions had the opposite effect, as it barely held on as one of the 5 strongest villages. Ino saw the approaching Konoha shinobi. Hold it. State your business. She trailed off when he saw Asuma. Oh, it's you, Captain Sarutobi. Asuma winced. His former cell had never forgave him. Still hasn't from the look of things. What are you doing here? Ino demanded. Last time I checked, Suna and Konoha are on bad terms. Regarding that incident, she said, glaring daggers at Sasuke. You're not welcome here in Suna. Go home. Tsunade frowned at the blatant disrespect her former student was showing. We came out of good faith. We came to see Gaara and see if he needs help in repelling the Akatsuki. There's no need for that, Lady Hokage, Temari replied as she appeared, looking just as haggard as the Ino Shika Cho. The battle is over. Has been for the past 2 days. Tsunade blinked. So, Suna still stands, the Wind Mistress replied. If it wasn't for the Emperor and his imperial forces, we would have been overrun. Sorry you came this way, Senju, but Konoha is still not welcome here. Take your ninja and go. Wait. Sasuke stepped forward. Where is Itachi? Was he here? He demanded. He was, Temari replied. The Emperor was fighting him. Without another word, Sasuke stormed forward, ignoring the calls from Tsunade and the others. Sighing, Tsunade turned to Temari. Can you take us to the cage so we can get a report on what has happened here? Temari sighed. Fine. Just don't alienate the imperial troops here. Asuma gave one longing look at his former cell, who was back at work with signing in Pakara merchants, ignoring him completely. His actions in the past regarding Ino and the Restoration Act had all but destroyed the relationship he once had with them as their sensei. Kurenai placed one reassuring hand on his shoulder. Come on, Asuma. They made their choice, she said in a soothing tone. Asuma sighed. I know. Damn it. He cursed as he followed Kurenai into the village. Imperial forces patrolled the streets with Suna shinobi as Tsunade and the others made their way towards the Cage Tower. Carts filled with dead Zetsu clones were being hauled off to be incinerated by disposal units. What the hell happened here? Kakashi asked. It started with Sasori and Deidara attempting to kidnap Gaara, Temari began. But the Emperor and his wife were here on an inspection tour of the Imperial Consulate, and they helped in killing both Akatsuki members. It was then revealed as Deidara lay dying by the Empress consort's hands that the Akatsuki planned on invading Suna to gain a foothold. 100,000 Zetsu clones, created by the Akatsuki as their main attack force, plus their remaining members against Suna's shinobi forces, with 4 battalions and 3 special forces units of the Imperial Defense Forces, with the Emperor and Empress Consort leading them alongside my brother. Our combined numbers were 80,000 to their 100,000. 100,000. That's nuts. Kiba exclaimed. You guys were outnumbered 2 to -1. Temari smiled. True, but the Emperor and his wife has fought against twice that number when they was uniting the West. I heard that he could bring about victory from defeat. Those rumors turned out to be very true. Those 100,000 clones turned out to be a major disadvantage when in close quarters. It's not entirely impossible for a smaller force to defeat a much larger force, Shino noted. Minato Namikaze decimated Iwa's ninja force by himself in the last Shinobi War. And his son just blew his kill record out of the water, Temari thought. She had heard rumors of the Hiroshin in action from Iwa ninja. Seeing it in action, on the other hand, was a completely different story. It was beautiful, but at the same time, very deadly. How did the Emperor manage to marshal such a force in such a small amount of time? Jiraiya asked. The Emperor is a master of time-space jutsu, Temari replied, thus confirming both of the Sannin. To be able to transport 4 battalions of shinobi and samurai from one continent to another has to be hell on one's chakra reserves. Reaching the town square, the area was clear of the Zetsu clones. On the opposite end of the square, Tsunade saw him. The Emperor of the Western Empire. The man radiated authority, and was dressed in all black, black flak vest, pants and sandals. The sleeveless haori was also black, but had a red flame pattern on the tail ends and a second symbol which Tsunade could not see clearly. His face was concealed by the black cage-style hat he wore on his head. The Godime Hokage nudged Jiraiya. Is that him? Jiraiya nodded. That's him, all right. The Emperor of the Unified West. Looks like he's heading elsewhere. He summoned Yamato. The Mokoden-wielding Anbu commander was at Jiraiya's side in an instant. Sir. Follow the Emperor, Jiraiya ordered. Report anything out of the ordinary to myself or Tsunade. Yamato nodded and departed from the group. Tsunade gave the order to the others to help out in any way they could while she and Jiraiya went inside to talk to Gaara and the Sand siblings. With Yamato, the Imperial Consulate was a walled compound 2 blocks away from the Cage Tower. As with the rest of Suna, the compound was damaged in the fighting, but was still livable. The imperial representative was Hikaru Shinto, Rose Shinto's uncle and an accomplished shinobi. When the invasion came, he fought alongside his emperor and empress consort, and was wounded during the fight between Hidan and Kazuku. Before Hidan could perform his ritual, it was Sadako Asahina who had made the save as she incinerated the bloodthirsty Jashinist priest ninja, reducing him to ash. The Imperial Consulate was also the place where the Jinchuriki were resting up following the Battle of the Sand. The Jinchuriki, Yugito ni, Killer Bee, Utakata, Roshi, Han and Fu, had fought valiantly in the battle which lasted for 4 hours. Even A had gotten in on the action, fighting at his brother's side. Yamato watched from a safe distance as the Emperor entered the Imperial Consulate. The gates were guarded by Imperial guards. Yamato saw that the building next door to the complex was not guarded, which was perfect enough for him to sneak in. The building itself was 3 stories tall, but tall enough for him to look over the compound walls. Yamato took notice of a gaping hole in the wall which would give him a perfect view of the inside of the consulate's courtyard. The building itself was unguarded, allowing Yamato easy access. Yamato made his way to the 3rd floor and found the jagged hole overlooking the consulate. What he saw surprised him. Jiraiya and the Godime had suspected that the Empire had taken the Jinchuriki, he thought. Look like they were right. I see Killer Bee, Yugito, Utakata, Fu and those 2 from Iwa, but no Uzumaki. And who is the red-headed woman with them? He watched as the Emperor emerged from the consulate. Almost immediately, the Jinchuriki and the red-headed woman stood before the emperor and went down on one knee. Money cannot buy the honor which you all have earned through your actions during this conflict, Yamato had heard the emperor say to the Jinchuriki and the mystery redhead. Your actions here in the past several days will forever be remembered, as you have brought much credit upon yourselves and on the unified Western Empire. As emperor of the imperial nation, I declare you all national treasures of the empire. Sir. Kurama and the Jinchuriki barked out in unison. Having seen enough, Yamato silently left the scene, unaware that he had tripped a hidden seal alerting the emperor to his presence. In the consulate, Naruto merely smiled. With Kurenai and Cell 9. When Kiba and Shino had told Kurenai about their visit to Kimen, Kurenai was especially concerned about the description of the Empress consort. So when they passed a triage center, curiosity had gotten the better of the trio and they walked inside. Several rows of cots were lined up throughout the room, each of them containing either an injured shinobi or samurai. As Suna medic nins, imperial medic nins and combat surgeons worked to make sure that they were comfortable. The former cell identified Matsuri instantly, as she was talking with several other Suna medics. And Kurenai saw her. It had been 6 years, but she recognized her former pupil in an instant. Her hair was cut short, but it was in a much different style than she wore as a genin under her command. Kiba saw that she had filled out in all the right places and was trying his hardest not to gawk, or drool, at his one-time crush. Kurenai saw that she was a medic nin, and her attire had backed that claim, a black shinobi shozoku with a fishnet undershirt, black junin flak vest. A satchel of medical supplies was strapped to the small of her back along with a pair of curved knives. Kurenai deduced that they were not from the east, but despite the exotic look to them, they were very deadly. She was talking with several imperial medics, an air of authority around her. Kurenai felt happy, but at the same time betrayed when Hinata had ran off with Naruto when the banishment orders had came down from the Godime. In the east, she was a wanted ninja, an A-rank missing nin in the bingo book. But she was an imperial medic ninja, and under the protection of the unified Western Empire. Need help with anything? A passing combat medic asked. Are you injured? Kurenai quickly responded. No. Actually, I was wondering if I could speak with that woman over there, she said, pointing to Hinata. Sure, the combat medic replied before walking over to Hinata and whispering in her ear. Kurenai watched as Hinata turned and faced her. Hinata did not look the least bit shocked upon seeing her former sensei and teammates again. Thanking the combat medic, Hinata walked over to her former cell. With a flick of her head, she gestured that she wanted to speak with them outside. Hinata led her former sensei and her former cell out into the Suna night. Stopping once they were outside, Hinata turned and faced Kurenai and the two men, and Akamaru. Isn't this something? Hinata said. Cell 8, together again. Hinata. Kurenai began, not knowing whether to either be disappointed or proud of her former student. You look good. Real good, Kiba seconded. You can drop the act, Kurenai, Hinata said, folding her arms across her chest. Kurenai frowned. This reunion had just went south quick. That's Kurenai-sensei to you, Hinata, she snapped. No, because seeing as how you denounced me when I left Konoha with Naruto, I don't see you as my sensei anymore, Hinata rebuked. What I want to know is this, why did you denounce me? Kurenai sighed. She turned away, as she could not look Hinata in the face. Hinata, what you did to me that day, what you did to all of us. I saw it as a betrayal. Even after I warned you about Uzumaki, that he was nothing but a fox in human skin, you still ran off, abandoned the village when he was banished. When I found out what you did, I saw it as a betrayal. She turned back to face her former student. So, yes, I denounced you. Judging by your tone, you still stand by your decision, Hinata noted. She did not sound surprised. Did you support the Godime's decree that Naruto should be banished? I did, Kurenai replied firmly. We all did. We still believe in that the Godime and the council did the right thing, Hinata. Not everyone, Yuahi, Hinata said. My father and my sister, the Ino Shikacho and their children, my cousin and his teammates, they honored the Yondaime's request, something that you, Asuma and the others should have done. Kurenai's eyes narrowed. Just how much did Hinata know? Realization then crept across her face as she said, it was you, wasn't it? You talked the Emperor into allowing the clan's asylum. The former heiress nodded before turning to both Kiba and Shino. I can tell that the both of you think that my husband is a demon in human flesh, she continued. But he is not. You married him, Kiba exclaimed. You married the demon, Hinata. How could you? Why not? Hinata replied. You of all people know I've always admired him back when we were genin. We've been married for 3 years now. Naruto is not the Nine Tails in human form. He is the Jinchuriki, the prison, warden and cell. The cup, but not the water. I met the fox personally and I can honestly say that she is very polite for a Biju. Kurenai blinked. The fox is female. Did you ever wondered why I decided to run when Tsunade banished him? Hinata asked. No, I guess I'll come clean and tell you. The clan elders planned on branding me with that damned seal, so my father sent me away with Naruto for my own safety. It was his own way of saying sorry for being such an asshole to me for the past couple of years, as well as protecting me. Out of all the clans in the Leaf, only my father, and the Ino Shikacho honored the Yondaime's final request, and did not see Naruto as a demon. What does that have to do with anything? Kiba demanded. Everything, Hinata replied. When Naruto was banished, Tsunade also reversed Sarutobi's law, as I was there that day. Naruto had to be out of Konoha by the end of the day, and out of Fire Country by the end of the week. But she didn't say anything about his parents, didn't she? What about that demon? Kiba retorted. Hinata meanly smiled. Naruto is not a no-named orphan like most of the village think. Hinata, you're on dangerous ground, Kurenai warned. Ever notice how Jinchuriki are related to people in positions of power? Hinata continued. Gaara's father was the previous Kazekage. Killer Bee's brother was the former Raikage. Naruto is no different. Tsunade and the council, in their so-called infinite wisdom, banished the son of the Yellow Flash and his wife, the Red Death. Hinata, Kurenai shouted. That is a SS class secret. They can't know about that. Well, it's a good thing that I'm not under Konoha's authority now, isn't it? Hinata retorted. Yes, Naruto is the legitimate son of Minato Namikaze and his wife, Kushina Uzumaki, who was the Jinchuriki to the Nine Tails at the time. Tsunade and Jiraiya tried to destroy all proof of his existence, but my husband is not known as the unpredictable ninja for nothing. The proof was hidden inside the forbidden scroll of sealing, which was easy for him to steal a second time. Kurenai, on the other hand, was fuming. She couldn't touch Hinata, as she was not under Konoha's command. The second was that she was an unknown. People change in 6 years, and judging by the flak vest she wore, Hinata was an experienced Junin and a highly skilled medic nin. And she had spent time in the West. If only Kurenai knew. But the story gets even more interesting, Hinata continued. Not only Naruto was banished on trumped-up charges, but Tsunade and Jiraiya spearheaded the entire thing. Betrayed by his own godparents. But there's more. Naruto's father was Jiraiya's star student in the sealing arts. Kushina was a surrogate daughter to Tsunade. Naruto has connections to the Senju clan through Hashirama's wife, Mito Uzumaki, who was the first Jinchuriki to the Nine Tails. It was Shino who connected the dots, as he studied Konoha's history. Mito Uzumaki married Hashirama Senju in order to bring the families closer into an alliance. Tsunade Senju is her granddaughter. From what Tsunade had confirmed, Kushina Uzumaki is her niece. His eyes widened as what he was about to say died on his lips. Hinata finished it for him. Yes, Shino. Tsunade banished her great-nephew. Enough. Kurenai shouted, now furious over the fact that Hinata had broken several of Konoha's darkest secrets. Enough, Hinata. Or what, Kurenai? Hinata shot back, not backing down from her former sensei. You're still in the bingo book for deserting Konoha, the Genjutsu mistress replied, preparing to strike. And you broken the laws regarding Uzumaki's lineage. I wanted to try and reconcile with you, but you leave me no choice. Shinra. Tensai. Crunch. Kiba looked around. What the hell was that? Kiba half shouted, looking around. More than likely, the Uchiha pissing off the Emperor, Hinata replied casually. And he is not as forgiving as most people think. Kurenai's eyes went wide like dinner plates. That stupid boy, she shouted, her problems with Hinata forgotten. Kiba, Shino, on me, we got to stop Sasuke. As Cell 8 bolted off to stop Sasuke from igniting a war between the Empire and the Leaf, Hinata merely smiled. So, it begins, she thought. With Kakashi, Asuma and Guy. While Kurenai had a reunion of her own, Kakashi decided to check out the town. Asuma and Guy, having given up on trying to find his former students, decided to tag along. Sasuke had ran on ahead in order to confront the Emperor, and given the fact that the Emperor and his wife were highly skilled warriors who could kill his former student in more ways than he could out, Sasuke could end up bringing a war onto Konoha's doorstep. While looking for Sasuke, they entered a section of Suna in which the presence of Imperial troops was more heavy than what they usually see. It soon became clear why to the trio of Junin. Before long, they were stopped by 3 Imperial shinobi. Kakashi saw that they were high Junin level, which could mean trouble for them. Whoa, stop right there, the senior Imperial Junin said as several more shinobi kept their distance, but was more than ready to swarm the trio just in case. This is a restricted area, you can't pass here. We're from Konohagakure, Asuma replied, using diplomacy. We're here to offer any form of assistance if needed. Thanks for the offer, the Imperial Junin replied, but we got everything covered here. You're guarding something, Asuma said, or rather, someone. You're smarter than you look, the Imperial Junin replied. We got a survivor from the Akatsuki, the leader himself, under guard. Given as to what he can do, the chief and his wife aren't taking any chances. Guy's SS-class threat. That caught the Konoha trio's attention. The Empire had captured the head of the Akatsuki. Just how powerful is the Emperor, as he was able to do what Konoha and the rest of the elemental countries had failed to do, which was destroy the Akatsuki. I take it he didn't surrender willingly, Kakashi said. Nope. One of the chief's senior advisors had the honor of taking him down, the Imperial Junin said. The lady had the honor of killing the mad bomber from Iwa earlier, while the chief took out that one member with the real freaky red eyes. Now that I think about it, the Akatsuki head's eye was the same as the other guy's. Now that caught the trio's attention. The leader of the Akatsuki had the Sharingan. Feeling a sense of dread in his gut, Kakashi asked the question that was on his mind. What is the leader's name? He asked. The Imperial Junin turned to one of his comrades. Hey, Ko, what's that guy's name? The one that Lady Kurama captured? He asked. The one named Ko replied, it's Uchiha. His name is Obito Uchiha. Kakashi's eye went wide as he looked like had been given the 1,000 years of death. Even Asuma and Guy was concerned. Obito, who had thought to had died in the last shinobi war, was the head of the Akatsuki. No. It can't be. Obito's dead, Kakashi's mind screamed. What are his crimes? Asuma asked, pushing down his emotions. Crimes against the imperial nation and her allies, the Imperial Junin said, and crimes against the Emperor of the Western Empire. Both carry an instant death sentence. What crimes against the Emperor? Asuma asked. The murder of his parents, the Imperial Junin replied. We need to confirm that Obito Uchiha is indeed the head of the Akatsuki so we can file it in our reports to the Hokage and the Konoha Council, Asuma said. Can you take us to him? We can, the Imperial Junin replied, but this is your first and only warning. If you try to aid and abet the Uchiha in any shape, form or fashion, you three will be leaving Suna in a box. The Konoha trio nodded and they were led, under heavy guard, to where Obito was being held. And %, the building in which housed the fallen Uchiha belonged to a Suna merchant who had evacuated the village along with the rest of the Suna civilians. A one-story storage shed, it was now an impromptu jail cell which held one of the most dangerous men in the elemental countries. Outside the house, a squad of Imperial shinobi, members of Zabuza's Demon Brigade, stood guard, weapons drawn, watching the Konoha shinobi like a hawk. Inside the single room, were 4 more shinobi, also of the Demon Brigade. And seated in the center of the room, was the former teammate of Kakashi Hatake, the now former leader of the Akatsuki, Obito Uchiha. The broken man was seated in a chair. The Rinnegan which he had stolen from Nagato before invading Konoha was removed from his left eye, albeit forcibly at the hands of Kurama. Chakra suppression cuffs were on his hands and even his legs. A series of seals were on his back, which had sealed off his chakra, drained him of his strength and rendered his Sharingan unusable. Overkill, yes, but the Emperor was not one to take any chances. Obito was alone with his thoughts, his remaining eye closed when he heard someone call out his name. Obito. Obito, is that you? Now there is a voice I haven't heard in years, Obito said as opened his eye. Kakashi, Asuma and Guy stood before him. Kakashi Hatake. Asuma Sarutobi. Maida Guy. So it's true, Guy said. We all thought you were dead. Reports of my death were exaggerated, to say the least, Obito replied. Of course, that brat of an emperor will soon rectify that little matter soon. Obito. Why? Kakashi asked. Why are you the leader of the Akatsuki? Why didn't you come back home? How did you survive with half of your body being crushed? I survived because of one man who was thought to have died, Obito replied. I survived because of Madara Uchiha. Madara, Asuma repeated. He should have died years ago. He's even older than Onoki. Since I have a death sentence on my head, I might as well tell you the story, Obito said calmly. And he told them of how Madara survived all these years using Hashirama Senju's DNA and had awakened the Rinnegan, of which he had implanted into Nagato without him knowing, and replaced his eyes with a spare Sharingan. He told them that through the demonic outer path statue, which had kept him alive for all this time, that he created a living clone of the first Hokage, of which was now destroyed by the Emperor having sent his forces to level his hideout, and that the Emperor had resealed the demonic statue and banished it from this plane. I acted at his behest, Obito concluded. And I did it willingly, per to his final wishes. Why? Kakashi demanded, while Guy muttered something about, unyouthful. I wanted to return to Konoha at first, Obito said. But Madara said that would be impossible, as I owed him my life. The crushed parts of my body were reconstructed with Hashirama's cells. While I was recovering and learning how to use my new limbs, I found out through Zetsu that both you and Rin were being attacked by Mist Shinobi. I came to the site, and watched as you shoved a Chidori into Rin's chest. Kakashi winced. You killed Rin, Obito deadpanned. And I killed the Kiri Shinobi when they tried to take her body. It was then, I realized that what Madara was telling me was indeed true. Our reality is indeed worthless and it should be destroyed. In its place would be a new reality. One where there would be no war, no pain and no suffering. Madara told me about the Moon Eye plan. By retrieving the Biju and merging them with the demonic statue, the 10-tailed beast would be revived, with myself as its Jinchuriki. I would use the power of the 10 tails to reflect the Magankyu onto the moon and place the world under an infinite Tsukiyomi. That fool Nagato truly believed that we were making a weapon powerful enough to force the elemental countries to make peace. You tried to make the world in your own image, Asuma said. By robbing it of its free will. Call it what you want, Sarutobi, Obito snapped. All I wanted was to end this world of lies. Sacrifices had been made. My clan, which I helped Itachi to destroy. Sensei and his wife. I still had the utmost respect for Minato, but he was so honorable to the end, even when I unleashed the 9 tails upon Konoha, as he sealed it inside his son. Asuma's eyes went wide. It was you caused the 9 tails to attack Konoha. All those people, the Yondaime and his wife, my mother, dead because of you. He was itching to kill the traitor himself. But now, it's over, Obito said, shoulders slumping. Madara will forever weep in the afterlife knowing that his plans will not take place. The Emperor of the West has retrieved the remaining Jinchuriki and offered them asylum within his empire. To be beaten by a little brat. We're done here, Asuma said to the Imperial Junin who had escorted the 3 of them here. I hope you die slowly, Uchiha, he snarled as he and the other 2 turned on their heels and began to walk to the door. Hitaki. Kakashi stopped in mid-step. He turned around. Come closer, Obito said. There's something else you need to know. Wary, Kakashi walked back to Obito, who motioned for him to come even closer so that he could whisper into Kakashi's ear. Kakashi complied, and Obito told him the final piece of information he had. Something which had rocked even Kakashi to the core. With that, Obito went silent. He would remain silent until the Emperor himself executed him. Upon being escorted out of Obito's impromptu cell, Kakashi had been whispering to himself, it can't be, impossible. What is it? Asuma demanded. What did Obito tell you? He told me the identity of the Emperor, Kakashi confirmed. The Emperor is Shinra, Tensai, Crunch. Asuma, Guy and Kakashi turned to the direction of the explosion. What the hell? Asuma wondered as they sped towards the source of the explosion. On the way, they ran into Kurenai and Cell 8. Kurenai said one thing which had them on edge. We have to stop Sasuke. He's fighting the Emperor now. Asuma nodded and they rushed off to stop the Uchiha from getting himself killed. As they ran to stop Sasuke, Obito's final words rang in Kakashi's mind. The Emperor is Minato-sensei's son, the student who you had forsaken. The Emperor is Naruto Uzumaki. With Tsunade, Sakura and Jiraiya, flanked by Kankuro and Temari, the Kazekage of Suna looked at his Konoha counterpart with great disdain. Both Sakura Haruno and Jiraiya were flanking the Godime Hokage. What are you doing here? He demanded. Last time I checked, we terminated the alliance with Konoha. We came to offer any assistance in any way, Tsunade explained. But from the look of things, you already have everything under control. Gaara nodded. The battle has been over for nearly a week. The Akatsuki has been completely destroyed. Its leader has been captured by the Empire and will be executed for his crimes. The elemental countries can now breathe a sigh of relief knowing that the Akatsuki is no more. Can we have a report on the battle? Jiraiya asked. One has been sent to the fire daimyo, Kankuro said. You should be getting a copy from him in a matter of days. You just did not show up because you wanted to join in on the battle, Gaara said. What do you want? To speak with the Emperor, and try to smooth over some of the lies he has heard, Sakura said. Some of which were spread by you and your village. Tsunade shot her pupil a nasty glare. Look, we came here to help out, to try and repair our alliance, she explained. It's clear that even without the Empire backing you, that Suna is on the fast track to usurping the leaf as being the strongest of the villages, while Kazuhana's shinobi village will knock us off as one of the 5 main villages. So you want to try and get back on my good side, is that it? Gaara asked, just as Yamato entered the room. While Yamato spoke with the 2 Sannin and Sakura, Asuna Junin appeared via Shunshin and whispered into Gaara's own ear. While Gaara looked amused, Sakura and the two Sannin looked very angry. When were you going to tell us that the Empire had retrieved the Jinchuriki and used them to fight in this war? Tsunade demanded. Wasn't my place to say it, Gaara replied. The Emperor convinced them to fight in this was against the Akatsuki. The Akatsuki were looking for the power of the Jinchuriki, and the Emperor gave it to them, although they were on the receiving end of it. If the rest of those demons were here, Sakura began, then Uzumaki was here as well. Gaara's eyes narrowed. In the far corner, the gourd which carried Gaara's reserve sand shook slightly, right before the cork popped out. Senju, please get your student under control, or else the next words out of my mouth will be, sand coffin. Tsunade threw a glare to Sakura which told her to shut up. Gaara continued. Yes, Uzumaki is here, but he is in the employ of the Western Empire, and thus, out of your jurisdiction. However, I would be more concerned about the leader of the Akatsuki which the Empire has captured. In fact, the Emperor has been privy to the identity of the Akatsuki chief for quite a while now. He leaned back in his chair. Tell me, does the name Obito Uchiha ring any bells? That got a reaction from Tsunade, but from more importantly, Jiraiya. Obito was Minato's student. We all thought that he had died in the last shinobi war. I thought that Nagato was the head of the Akatsuki. Gaara said. Far from it. The Empire's information network is very thorough, even more so than yours. However, I would be more concerned about Konoha's golden boy picking a fight with the Emperor. Realization crept across the Sannin's faces, just as Shinra, Tensai, crunch. Damn that Uchiha, Tsunade shouted, turning on her heels and bolting out of the room, Jiraiya and Sakura following her. Behind his desk, Gaara merely smiled. This is going to be one hell of a family reunion, he mused. Minutes earlier, at the Imperial Consulate, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze looked at Kurama and the assembled Jinchuriki that knelt before him. He could not be any more prouder of not only his forces, but of the Jinchuriki and the role they played in the destruction of the Akatsuki. Money cannot buy the honor which you all have earned here through your actions during this conflict, Naruto began, once again masking his voice. He also knew that Yamato was watching, as he had triggered the seals he had placed inside the neighboring building. Your actions here in the past several days will forever be remembered, as you have brought much credit upon yourselves and on the unified Western Empire. As Emperor of the Imperial Nation, I declare you all national treasures of the Empire. Sir. Kurama and the Jinchuriki barked out in unison. Had Yamato remained inside his hidey hole for another 15 seconds, he would have seen Sasuke Uchiha forced his way inside the Imperial Consulate. The Imperial soldiers inside drew their weapons, but the Emperor ordered them to stay their hand. Not really caring that the Emperor had the Jinchuriki, Sasuke stormed across the courtyard, Sharingan ablaze. Where is he? Where is he? Sasuke demanded. Naruto looked amused. You again, Uchiha. Where is my brother? Sasuke demanded. I know he was here. They said that he was fighting you. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. People say plenty of things. I could have either been fighting either your brother, or his walking sushi plate of a partner. Maybe I was fighting the insane Jushinist and his miserly partner. You never know. This is your first and only warning, little man. Leave now or else I will not be held responsible for what happens if you refuse. Damn you! Sasuke shouted as he unsheathed his chokoto. Lighting began to dance along the blade as Sasuke charged. Big mistake, Fu muttered as she and the other Jinchuriki quickly got out of the way. Naruto's eyes shimmered into the Rinnegan as he raised one hand. Shinra. This is going to hurt, muttered to himself. Tensai. Sasuke felt an invisible force lift him off his feet and sent him crashing through the compound wall before landing amongst the debris from the battle and from the remains of the compound wall. Naruto did not give him a chance to recover, as he hopped through the gaping hole in the wall and with an uppercut from hell to the jaw, propelled Sasuke into the air. As Sasuke fell back to the ground, Naruto kicked him hard in the chest. Only to find out that he had kicked a log in two. So he's finally learned something, Naruto thought as Sasuke appeared from behind, Chikudo in hand, ready to impale him. Smirking, Naruto executed the flash step. Derived from his father's signature Hiraishin, Naruto moved fast enough for him to leave an afterimage, of which Sasuke found out the hard way when his blade slashed through Naruto's afterimage. Flashing through several hand seals, Naruto unleashed his jutsu. Wind Release. Deadly Tempest. Having seen Temari's signature Kamidachi in action, Naruto had created a jutsu using Gaara's fan-wielding sister as his inspiration. The Deadly Tempest was an A-ranked jutsu which blasted the opponent with hurricane force winds. Depending on which type of element he was using at the time, the Deadly Tempest had several interesting effects. If he combined the jutsu with his fire affinity, then the person on the receiving end would suffer third-degree burns. The wind affinity was the opposite. It supercooled the air, making the person not only numb, but it slowly drained their chakra. Sasuke was hit with the latter. The powerful winds crashed into the Uchiha prince's body, once again lifting him up into the air and sending him into the general direction of Suna's village square, Sasuke cursing the emperor as he was sent flying. The last Uchiha crashed into the town square, just as Tsunade, Jiraiya, Yamato and Sakura came charging out of the Cage Tower, while Kakashi, Asuma and Guy emerged from a side street, following their conversation with Obito Uchiha, and Cell 8 came from around the corner following their confrontation with Hinata. Naruto calmly walked into the square as Sasuke tried to get back to a vertical base. Meanwhile, the Imperial forces had blocked off the Konoha shinobi's escape route, effectively separating the Sannin, the Junin and the remnants of Konoha 11 from the majority of the Konoha Junin that were still outside of Suna, creating an impromptu arena. Silly little Uchiha who thinks he is a match for me, Naruto mused. Sasuke coughed up a wad of blood and spit it out. Shut up, he snarled. Where is Itachi? Itachi? So your brother has a name, Naruto said, one hand going into his pocket. He pulled out the item he knew that would set Sasuke over the edge and tossed it to his former teammate, where it landed at his feet. Sasuke looked down and his eyes went wide. With a trembling hand, he reached down and picked up the item. An item he recognized instantly, as it had something to do with his brother. The item in question was Itachi's Akatsuki ring. Correction. He had a name, Naruto said. Sasuke began to tremble as the full totality of what the Emperor was saying had struck him with full force. In case you fail to realize, Uchiha, Naruto continued, your brother is dead. His body, along with what remains of the Akatsuki, is being burned outside of the village walls. Sasuke looked at the ring. Then back at the Emperor. The Magenkyu began to spin rapidly as the cursed seal reactivated, thus breaking through the seals Jiraiya had placed on him years earlier that was designed to nullify the cursed seal's influence. Itachi was dead. The Emperor did the one thing that he could not, which was to kill him. His family would be unavenged. He was indeed, albeit he did not know of Obito's existence, the last Uchiha. Flame-like patterns began to appear on Sasuke as the cursed seal began to make him stronger. Black flame patterns began to appear, spreading from Sasuke's shoulder, to one side of his face and down his arm, ending at his hand, which was currently charging a second Chidori. Oops, Naruto taunted. Did I say something wrong? You bastard. Sasuke bellowed as he charged, the now freed cursed seal giving him a boost in speed. Die. Sasuke. No. Jiraiya and Tsunade shouted. Instead of using the flash step, Naruto spun to the side, the cage-style hat falling off his head as Sasuke passed him, missing where his head was at just moments earlier, and prepared his own counterattack. One that anyone who knew the Yondaime recognized almost instantly. Sasuke. Don't. Kakashi shouted, just as Sasuke spun to face the Emperor. The Emperor is Rasengan. Snafu's notes. I was going to be mean and post this after the new year, but decided against it. This will be the last chapter I will post for this year. I hope that VFSNAKE does not mind, as there is a reference from his fanfic Hollow Inari in this chapter, and several others, see if you can find them. Also, I had to rewrite this chapter in order to include a fight between Zabuza and Kakashi. In the years following his duel on Wave, Zabuza has picked up some new tricks in his swordplay. Think Zabuza fighting like Nightmare in Soul Calibur 5. Also, someone from Konoha dies in this chapter, but who? Standin' in the heart of darkness, give me my life, give me my energy. Fightin' in the heart of madness, ease my pain, ease my loneliness. Komodo Band, Heart of Darkness. Rasengan. The melon-sized orb of concentrated chakra had obliterated Sasuke's Anbu armor, leaving him from the waist up, and had once again sent him flying. The Uchiha prince landed on his back. The mind-numbing effects of sustaining the deadly tempest earlier had sapped the tainted chakra from Orochimaru's cursed seal, causing the black flames to dissipate off of Sasuke's body. You could literally hear a pin drop as Naruto rose to his full height, Hinata moving to his side. To those from Konoha who knew Minato Namikaze, it was as if he was standing before them, save that he was now a redhead and he wore a haori instead of a trench coat. But he was anything but. Sasuke. Sakura shouted, seeing her husband to be being sledgehammered back by her former teammate. The pink head turned her attention towards Naruto. Instantly, she saw red. Ungloved hand balled into a fist, she let out a feral scream and charged at Naruto. Sakura. No, Tsunade shouted, holding her student back. Let me go, Tsunade. Sakura shouted. Look what he did to Sasuke. Rinnegan activated. Naruto looked at the gathered Konoha shinobi. His earlier visit to Konoha showed that they were not under Danzu's genjutsu, meaning that their hatred for them was indeed genuine. Which was good in Naruto's case, meaning that the gloves were now off. Naruto deactivated the Rinnegan. Well, isn't this the reunion? He said, looking at his former teammates. Although we are now on opposite sides. Tossing a glance to his wife, he said, and here, I thought they would be happy to see us. Hinata gave him a dry grin. I think not, she said. From his place on the ground, Sasuke managed to get out. Dobi, the Emperor, you. It's true, Kakashi said, raising his Hitai-8, exposing the Sharingan. Naruto saw that it was the Magankyu. Obito confirmed it. Uzumaki is the Emperor of the West. It was then that the Sannin and to the shinobi who had went to the west began to connect the dots, as the full totality of what was now revealed to them. Naruto Uzumaki was the descendant of the Six-Path Sage. Naruto Uzumaki wielded the Rinnegan. Naruto Uzumaki was the Emperor of the Western Empire. Tsunade's eyes narrowed, as did Jiraiya's. Up until Jiraiya's return from the Western Empire, the West was the last place that Naruto would have ended up in. Now, he was back, and seeing as how they screwed him over, was an even bigger threat to Konoha than Orochimaru, Kumo and Iwa combined. How did a dead last like you become the Emperor of the West? Asuma demanded. You can thank your father and those two idiots, Naruto said, referring to Jiraiya and Tsunade. Your father tried to stunt my growth. When that failed, Tsunade and Jiraiya banished me, and tried to kill me by sending Hunter Ninja after Hinata and myself. He pulled out a Hiraishin kunai and begun to spin it from the ring on one finger. Unlike his father's tri-bladed Hiraishin kunai, these were of Naruto's design. Black carbon steel, with the Hiraishin seals carved onto the blade itself, think Lee Christmas throwing kunai. I should have had you executed, Tsunade seethed. Damn it, I should have killed you the moment that you arrived with Jiraiya. Now that's no way to treat your godson, or rather, your great-nephew, Naruto replied. How would my parents think about the both of you breaking your promise to look after me after they died? If you want the true culprit of the Nine Tails attack on Konoha, it's Obito himself. Besides, you kill me, the Nine Tails will kill you in retaliation. You are no son of Minato and Kushina, Jiraiya shot back. You killed them. You are just a demon in human skin. Naruto chuckled, sending chills down the Sanin's, and everyone else's, spines. You really should rein in your temper, pervy sage, he replied. I could had you and the others killed back in Kimen and your heads sent back to Konoha. But you should be glad that I decided to cut some time for this little reunion. He began to leak potent killer intent as he continued to speak, addressing the Sanin. I'm sensing plenty of bad blood between the three of us. The memories are overwhelming, to tell you the truth. How many crimes have you committed against me and my family? Naruto began to count off their crimes on his fingers. First off, you went along with Sarutobi's scheme to make me into a weapon, instead of following my father's final wishes of having me seen as a hero. And what else? What else? Oh, that's right, the both of you and nearly all of Konohagakure no Sato favored a potential traitor and banished me for doing my job. His gaze fell upon Tsunade and Jiraiya. But the biggest crimes of all came from you two. You betrayed me, and by extension, betrayed my parents. Betray. Jiraiya repeated. Betray. You're wrong, Naruto. We didn't betray Minato and Kushina. We honored them. Every single day you suffered growing up in the leaf, that was to honor their sacrifice they made in allowing you to live. You were nothing more than a mistake. An accident. Sensei lost his wife, I lost Minato and Tsunade lost her niece. You were a living reminder of what we had lost. For that, you had to pay. Funny, because I met them a couple of years back. You see, as a fail-safe, they left a portion of their souls inside the seal as a last resort should I reach 8 tails or decide to break the seal, Naruto retorted. He grinned evilly. They know about your crimes against me. They wanted to tell you that the both of you are in deep shit. You lie, Tsunade shouted. I never lie, hag, not when it comes to family or about my skills, Naruto replied. Whether you believe it or not is no consequence to me. The both of you betrayed my parents by choosing the leaf over my parents. You are not the son of the Yondaime, demon. An Anbu wearing a hawk mask, who had not been separated from the others, shouted. Thunk. A kunai pierced the porcelain skull. Blood spurted out from the wound as the man fell over, dead before he had hit the ground. Kurenai looked at her former student in horror, as it was Hinata who had tossed the kunai. The Empress consort reached behind her back and retrieved her dual kukri knives, readying herself for the battle that was to come. Nice shot, Naruto complimented his wife. He cracked his knuckles as the Imperial forces backed off, taking to the roofs, as they knew that this battle was going to be very wild. Don't worry about my soldiers who are surrounding you. They will not interfere in our little reunion. You have got to be out of your mind to think that the both of you can win against us, Jiraiya said. A banished genin and a missing nin against two of the Sanin and the best shinobi that Konoha has to offer. You forget who I am, Jiraiya, Naruto replied as he activated the Rinnegan. I am the unpredictable shinobi of Konoha. Oh, wait, I am not a shinobi of Konoha. Tsunade saw to that. He snapped his fingers and a shadow clone appeared. It was of Naruto, but it was anything but. As the direct descendant of the Six Paths Sage, Naruto wielded the Rinnegan, having unlocked it at the Valley of the End during his fight with Sasuke Uchiha. In his years in the West, Naruto had honed his skills under Kurama's tutelage. One signature jutsu of anyone using the Rinnegan was called the Six Paths Jutsu. In truth, there were 7 paths, the 7th being the outer path. Naruto, however, preferred using the other 6 paths, as the outer path pertained to life and death itself. Nagato had derived his own jutsu, the 6 paths of pain, from the original jutsu. Naruto was no different. Unlike Nagato, who used bodies and chakra receivers for his jutsu, Naruto preferred reinforced shadow clones. Unlike his standard Kage Bushin, these were reinforced, and would not dissipate when struck hard enough. They would only disperse upon Naruto's command. Naruto called his own variant of the Six Paths Jutsu the Wrath of the Six Paths. Naruto himself used the Diva Path, incorporating it into his fighting style. The clone looked scary, even for the shinobi from Konoha. The reddish blonde hair was spiked upwards. Dark markings were on his face, eyes, chest and arms. He was from the waist up, showing off a muscular body. He wore a tattered black hakama with a red flame pattern. A pair of greaves were on his shins, although one was covered by the hakama, while the other leg had tucked into the greave itself. Last, his arms had a metallic look to them, as if they were made of an indestructible metal. This was the strongest of Naruto's paths, the Asura path. Sasuke got back to his feet, and fell back to his knees. Whatever Naruto had hit him with had drained him of his chakra. Dobi, you killed Itachi. You took my rightful vengeance from me. Naruto responded by making a blah blah gesture with his hand. I will make you beg for mercy. Then I will take your throne, and your wife. The Uchiha finished, looking at Hinata. He had not forgotten that she nearly chopped off his balls back in Kimen. But from the look of things, she appeared to be even stronger than Sakura. The Dobi will pay, Sasuke thought darkly. Then I will take his wife as my prize. She will pay for what she tried to do to me. Yawn. You couldn't beat me at the Valley of the End. You couldn't beat me in T Country. Right now, I'm 2-0 against you, Naruto replied. To the Summon Path, he gave its marching orders. Keep Hitaki, Sarutobi, Guy and Yamato occupied. The Sannin are mine. The Anbu are expendable. Sir. Asura Naruto barked out and prepared to fight. Tsunade cracked her knuckles. I am going to enjoy humiliating you in front of your men, she said. You can try, Naruto retorted. I'm not the same Naruto Uzumaki you banished. Before anyone could make a move, however, a massive broadsword landed in between the group from Konoha and the Emperor and his wife, blade first. Kakashi's eyes went even wider in horror as he recognized the blade, as did Sasuke and Sakura. The Kubikiribocho, the head-chopping cleaver, and its owner stepped into view, standing behind Naruto and Hinata. One thought to have died while in Wave Country. Well, Zabuza drawled. If it isn't, copycat Hitaki. I must have done something good in the past. Today is my lucky day. You should be dead. Sakura screeched. And yet, here I am, Zabuza said. He then addressed Naruto and Hinata. Far be it from me to interfere with both you and the missus's problems regarding Konoha, but Hitaki and I have unfinished business, and I've come to play, chief. Naruto knew what he wanted. Zabuza wanted Kakashi's head. Naruto had no problem with that, since he already beaten the crap out of his former sensei back in T Country. Naruto had promised that Zabuza could kill his former sensei and he was a man of his word. He's all yours, Zabuza, Naruto said. The demon of Kimen grinned underneath his bandages as he strode forward and retrieved his sword. Stay out of this, Kakashi said as he pulled out a pair of chakra sabers, modeled after the white light chakra saber that both his father and himself once carried. This is my fight. Get them, Tsunade ordered. With that, what would become the Konoha Imperial conflict has begun. With Naruto, Jiraiya and Tsunade Senju were two of the three legendary Sannin, the former students of Hiruzen Sarutobi. He was the Mountain Toad Sage, Konoha's resident spymaster, self-proclaimed super pervert and the trainer of Minato Namikaze, Konoha's Yellow Flash. She was the Slug Princess, granddaughter and great-niece of Hashirama and Tobirama Senju, a legendary medic nin and healer, and one of the best kunoichi in the elemental countries, the third Senju to assume the post of Hokage. Their opponent was their godson, Tsunade's great-nephew, as Kushina Uzumaki was her niece. They had the chance to choose family over the village, the chance to honor Minato and Kushina's final request. In the end, they decided to follow the whims of their former sensei, Hiruzen Sarutobi, in his plans to make Naruto Konoha's weapon. In the end, they decided to forsake their godson. And he was not happy. To say that their former godson was not very happy was saying that water country is a little wet. He was the son of the village hero and his wife, Konoha's Yellow Flash and Uzushiogakura's princess, also known as the Red Death. He was the Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tails Demon Fox, the dead last who they had banished when it became clear that not only did Sarutobi's plans to condition him had failed, but the fact that he could not be controlled. Fate sure had a way to bite someone on the ass. Sasuke Uchiha had attempted to flee from Konoha, believing that the village was not helping him in his quest to kill Itachi. Naruto had been banished and later marked for death because he was viewed as a threat to the Leaf, Tsunade and the council using the convenient excuse of using excessive force. While Sasuke trained under Danzo, Naruto and Hinata had participated in a war which united the West under his rule 7 years earlier. While Sasuke gained the Magankyu, Naruto had the most powerful of bloodlines, the Rinnegan. While Sasuke had everything given to him, Naruto had worked and fought long and hard for everything he had. The Emperor of the West faced off against the two remaining Sannin. Jiraiya and Tsunade assumed that if the Hunter Nin did not kill Naruto, then he would die without Konoha's protection. There was no love lost between Naruto and the two Sannin, and he made that point known by making the first move, forcing both Tsunade and Jiraiya on the offensive. In a burst of speed, the Genin-turned Emperor was upon the two elder shinobi, punching and kicking. Naruto could have went for an easy win, but chose not to. He wanted to do this up close and personal. Tsunade and Jiraiya found out the hard way that this was not the same brat they had banished 7 years earlier. Far from it, Naruto was not holding back, as he tagged both Jiraiya and Tsunade with several brutal shots. Sanshi had tutored Naruto not only in the art of combat, but in the art of tactics as well, which is why he was holding his own against the two Sannin. Know your enemy and know yourself, and you can fight 100 battles without disaster, Sanshi had told him during his days as a warlord in the Unification Wars. Naruto knew how Tsunade and Jiraiya had fought. Tsunade had her super strength and the slug contract, while Jiraiya had the backing of the toads and sage mode. While the seals he had drawn up had done its job of nullifying the summoning jutsus, as well as his own, Naruto still had to contend with their other abilities. Sidestepping a Rasengan from Jiraiya, Naruto grabbed a handful of Jiraiya's hair and slammed him to the ground. Raising one foot to stomp the toad sage's head into a fine paste, he failed to notice Tsunade coming in from behind, preparing to cave in Naruto's head with a chakra-powered punch to the skull. Imagine her surprise that it was not Naruto's head she destroyed, but rather a wooden log. Naruto had avoided the blow, and had reappeared behind the Godime. Bansho Tenin. Tsunade felt herself being lifted off her feet and flung backwards towards Naruto, who caught her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Using the momentum from the Bansho Tenin, he arched his body backwards, planting Tsunade head first into the ground via a vicious belly-to-back waist lock suplex, i.e., a German suplex. Getting back to a vertical base, Naruto began to punch Tsunade in the face repeatedly. After the first 2 blows, Tsunade managed to get her hands up in order to block her face from Naruto's onslaught of overhead punches. A battle cry from overhead had drawn Naruto's attention from his attempts to punch in the Godime's face. Looking up, he saw that Sasuke has now recovered. Chikuto in hand, he was looking to impale his former teammate. Naruto got out of the way, while Tsunade rolled out of the way, lest she would find herself impaled on Sasuke's weapon. Naruto faced off against the Uchiha prince. Magankyu spinning, Sasuke went on the offensive. Naruto pulled out a black Hiraishin kunai and parried and deflected the attacks from the Uchiha. A backhand followed by a double open palm strike to the breadbasket forced Sasuke back to the ground, just as Naruto's senses went haywire. Spinning around, he saw Tsunade lifted an overturned pillar, twice as big as he was in her hands, showing off her super strength. With a yell, she heaved it towards Naruto. The Emperor of the West responded by jumping up, running across the pillar before leaping off and kicking the Godime in the side of her head, knocking her down. Turning back towards Sasuke, he saw Jiraiya charging in instead, headbutting Naruto, forcing him back. At the same time, Sasuke, now on his feet, tried to outflank him from behind. Naruto saw him, grabbed the last Uchiha and used him as a shield as Jiraiya tried to punch him. Instead, the super pervert nailed Sasuke right in the skull. Naruto knocked Jiraiya away and flung Sasuke into Tsunade. Pulling out a scroll, Naruto opened it, stained some of his blood on it, thus activating the scroll. As Sasuke saw from his place on the ground, it was a storage scroll which contained Naruto's signature weapon, the Okatana, think Virgil's Yamato from Devil May Cry. The Okatana he wielded was forged from the metal found inside a meteorite, the blade considered to be indestructible and incredibly sharp, as well as highly adaptable to chakra. Naruto had found it while returning from a campaign in the north. The sword was hidden inside a cave inside the Laja Mountains. That and over 400 cases full of gold bars, which he used to fund his campaign of unification, and later used it to build the empire. Sasuke looked at the sword and retrieved his own Chokoto. Nice sword, he said. I'll take that off your hands as well. You are not worthy of having such a weapon in your possession. It would be better suited for me, Dobi. Naruto unsheathed his weapon. You are not worthy of this blade, Uchiha. The sword recognizes me as its master. It will reject you. Jiraiya, now recovered, saw that Naruto was distracted with Sasuke and activated Sage Mode. Drawing upon his Senjutsu, he created an Odama Rasengan. With Sage Mode activated, it gave him a boost in speed, of which he used to charge at Naruto from behind. Naruto smirked as he sensed Jiraiya's attempt to kill him with his father's signature move. Not breaking eye contact with Sasuke, he uttered the words, Imperial Style, Flash Step. Even with the Sharingan active, Sasuke could not follow Naruto's movements, or copy the technique, as he moved incredibly fast, as Jiraiya found out the hard way. Instead of impaling Naruto, Jiraiya found that his Rasengan had went through an after image of his former godson. Naruto emerged out of the technique, on Jiraiya's side, sword raised over his head, his intentions made clear. Slash. Thump. Jiraiya's outstretched arm fell to the ground, the Odama Rasengan dispelling, its chakra depleted. Jiraiya's shock was short-lived, as Naruto kicked him in the breadbasket, knocking him back, blood erupting out of his stump like a geyser. Sasuke stood there, shock evident on his face as his brain processed what Naruto had done. Jiraiya! Tsunade shouted, having witnessed the amputation of the super pervert's arm by Naruto. Her face twisted into rage, she jumped to her feet, ready to attack yet again before Naruto stopped her. Senju. I would be more worried about your teammate rather than me, Naruto said, looking at Jiraiya. He's starting to go into shock from the blood loss. I'd give him 10, 20 minutes tops before he bleeds out without any treatment, he said in a casual tone as if he was discussing the weather. So what's it going to be? Fight me and let Jiraiya bleed to death. Or don't fight me and save his life. Tsunade looked at Jiraiya, then back at Naruto. Gritting her teeth, she knew that this battle between herself and Jiraiya against Naruto was over, as he was right. She turned from the Emperor and began to save Jiraiya's life, lest he bled to death. She was out of this fight, as from the look of things, she had injured and dead shinobi on her hands. Turning back to Sasuke, who had quickly gotten over his shock of seeing one of the most powerful of the Sannin being crushed so easily, he brought his sword into a ready stance. Now, where were we? Sasuke smirked as he raised his Chikudo. I was going to show everyone here why I am an elite. I think Emperor of the West would suit me better than a dobe like you. You always loved the sound of your own voice, didn't you, Sasuke? Naruto said as they circled. You wouldn't last 5 minutes in the Empire. Face it, you are second best. That made Sasuke mad. You think that you're the only one who knows swordplay. I was taught by the best in Konoha. Naruto raised his sword in a formal salute, Dooku style. Then show me, Sasuke Uchiha. Let's see if the so-called Uchiha elite is a match for the Emperor of the Six Paths. With that, the duel was on. With Hinata, aside from Kurenai and Cell 8, Sakura Haruno faced off against Hinata Hyuga. The shy, meek, insecure shinobi that had her ass handed to her by Neji was gone. In her place was a medic nin, forged in the fires of the Unification Wars. Sakura had kicked herself for not realizing it sooner, that the former heiress to the Hyuga was not only the Empress consort, but the head of the medic nin program. But now, as Sakura found out as she and Kurenai's team surrounded Hinata, Hinata was an unknown. She was not the insecure genin who got her ass handed to her by her elder cousin. She was Naruto's wife, which made her the Empress consort of the West. Whatever, Sakura snorted as she prepared for the inevitable fight. I've trained under Tsunade. I'm her true successor to becoming Sannin. Not that pig Ino. Hinata will soon see that fact firsthand. Sakura would find out just how wrong she was, as Hinata had brought her down in 10 hits, think Jun's 10-hit combo, knocking her out cold, her Tenketsu points sealed. Kurenai gave the order to attack. Hinata calmly countered the attacks from her former teammates. Kurenai had went for an easy win, or so she had hoped, with her signature tree-binding death jutsu, only to find out that Hinata's enhanced Byakugan had neutralized her genjutsu. Shino attempted to use his Kikachu to drain her chakra and force Naruto to surrender, only to see Hinata incinerate the tornado of Kikachu with what she called the Deadly Tempest. Hinata then dropped Shino with several Senbon needles laced with a slow-acting poison. The poison wasn't lethal, but was designed to attack the nervous system, meaning that Shino would be out of it for a while, and he will need plenty of time to recover. The battle was now 3-on-1, as the Inuzuka and his dog, now mimicking Kiba, and Kurenai fought Hinata. The Empress consort, as they had found out, had some new tricks, as what remained on Cell 8 learned the hard way. As Hinata was distracted with Kiba and Akamaru, Kurenai attacked from behind. Kunai in hand, she was ready to stab Hinata in the back. 8 trigrams. Kaden. Smack. Kurenai knew of the Hyuga's Kaden, or rotation. She knew that it was an defensive move, designed to deflect any type of projectiles, as she had seen Neji Hyuga use it against Naruto Uzumaki during the Chunin exams. Hinata, however, had made it into an offensive weapon. Her body covered from head to toe in chakra, Hinata spun on her heels, the waves of chakra emerging from her body. To Kurenai, it was as she had taken one of Tsunade's super punches to the face, as she found herself being propelled into the air. A volley of poison-laced Senbon needles soon followed and met its target, leaving Kurenai in the same state as Shino. She fell back to the ground, having been taken out of the fight, leaving Kiba and Akamaru to face Hinata. With Hinata preoccupied with Kurenai, Kiba and Akamaru struck. Gatsuga. Hinata knew that Kiba wasn't above cheap shots when her back was turned, she also did the same while back in the West. They were ninja, after all. Knowing firsthand as to how the Gatsuga worked, Hinata performed a second rotation, knocking Kiba and Akamaru out of the move, knocking them both to the floor. Kiba and Akamaru got back to their feet, but noticed the ever-familiar 8 trigrams pattern that they were standing on, which meant one thing. You're in my range, Kiba, Hinata confirmed. Ah, crap, Kiba muttered. Moving faster than the normal eye can track, Hinata struck both Kiba and Akamaru. As she had used the 64 palms, she split it in half, striking Kiba 32 times, and Akamaru 32 times. As Kiba found out, judging from the sealed chakra points, the broken leg, fractured wrist and broken ribs, Hinata had upgraded the 64 palms so that she can tear muscle and break bones. Kiba knew that he was out of the fight. Akamaru would be spending some time with Hana at the kennels. But despite everything, he considered himself lucky that Hinata did not hate him that much. Worst case scenario was that she could have killed him and Akamaru. You could have went easy on us. Kiba lamented. I did. I didn't kill you, Hinata replied. Despite you asking me out when we were kids, you were the nicest to me. This is your one-time deal, Inuzuka. With her former cell effectively neutralized, Hinata bowed out of the fight. With Kakashi and Zabuza, 7 years earlier, Zabuza Momochi was thought to have died in Wave Country. Of course, Kakashi had embellished the reports on what had happened during the mission. He said that Sasuke and Sakura had defended Tazuna, while he himself took out Zabuza. Naruto, being the dead last, did nothing. But he did not suspect that both Zabuza and his partner used a powered-up blood clone and fled to the west as the Mist Hunter ninjas closed in. In the 7 years since their last encounter, Zabuza had hooked up with a group of Mist refugees living in the southern region and later, hooked up with Naruto in his quest to unify the West. The price Zabuza asked for: Kakashi Hataki's head. Aside from Kakashi, Zabuza had to deal with the 10 Anbu who had came to assist the Sharingan-wielding shinobi in killing the demon of Kimen. Or rather, the 5 Anbu, as Zabuza had cut them down without batting an eye, showing to Kakashi that Zabuza's skills has drastically improved in the years following his death, wielding his oversized sword as if it was like a normal katana. The remaining Anbu kept their distance as they watched Kakashi and Zabuza locked in a life-or-death duel. Kakashi had thought that without water for Zabuza to perform his jutsu, that this would be an easy match for him to win, and that Zabuza would die for real. But for someone who once preached, "Look underneath the underneath," he had underestimated the former Mist swordsman, as he found himself on the defensive against Zabuza's barrage of attacks. The fight between the two shinobi, plus 5 Anbu, had moved inside a building. Had Kakashi and the others were paying any attention, they would have noticed that the building in question was a damaged restaurant, a popular eatery for the shinobi and civilians in Suna. Perfect for Zabuza, as he could finally use his silent kill to get rid of the annoying Anbu that were keeping their distance. Once Kakashi and the Anbu were inside, Zabuza pulled out several smoke bombs and threw them at Kakashi and the Anbu. Once they were properly distracted, Zabuza retreated into the kitchen. Out in the dining area, in the midst of several coughing fits, Kakashi managed to get out. Be on your guard. Zabuza could be anywhere. Zabuza's laughter echoed through the restaurant. Got that right, Hitaki. I am everywhere, and nowhere, his disembodied voice said. The heart, the lungs, the spine, the brain, the liver, the kidneys, and the jugular. The body's 7 most vital spots. So many ways to kill, so little time. Be careful, Kakashi warned the Anbu with him. He is the master of the silent kill. Too late, Zabuza's voice said, the smoke finally clearing. Your friends are already dead. Kakashi looked around, and sure enough, the bodies of the 5 Anbu were sprawled all over the floor. Then Zabuza appeared from behind, hoping to take Kakashi's head on in one swing. Instead, the demon of Kimen ended up cleaving a log in 2. Zabuza spun around and deflected several kunai flung at him from Kakashi. Soon, the 2 men had locked blades. Come on, Hitaki, Zabuza said. I just want to take a little off the top. The sword fight then resumed, with Zabuza beating down Kakashi's defenses. Kakashi managed to break the stalemate and fired off a great fireball jutsu, of which Zabuza managed to block, giving him enough time to unleash. Kamui. With Asura Naruto, Yamato, Asuma, Maida Guy and 30 Anbu who were inside the impromptu arena charged towards Naruto. But Asura Naruto stood in their path. I am going to enjoy this, Asura Naruto said as he prepared to attack. While 10 of them assisted Kakashi against Zabuza, the remaining 10 stood with their Anbu commander. Spread out, Yamato shouted. Give him multiple targets. He can't take us all on. I got him, Asuma shouted as he went through hand seals which Asura Naruto recognized. Snake, rat, snake, tiger, fire release, ash pile burning, he said before blowing a cloud of chakra-enhanced gunpowder at Asura Naruto, enveloping him. Asuma was the son of Hiruzen and Bawako Sarutobi, a former member of the 12 Guardian Ninja, one of Konoha's top shinobi. So he thought he would cinch an easy victory over what was the village dead last. Asuma had read the files on Naruto, as he was privy to his father's plans regarding the Uzumaki. He was one of many who had assaulted him as a child. The Shinobi Academy had sabotaged his training. Even Konohamaru's friendship to him was false, as it was an attempt for the Sandaime to have Naruto grow an attachment to the village. The only thing he had for him was that fact that he was the Jinchuriki and that he knew the shadow clones. As Asuma began to make the hand seals for a fire jutsu, the cloud of gunpowder suddenly blew back towards the Anbu and the Junin. Guy's eyes went wide as he saw a single sheet of paper fluttering in the black cloud. A sheet of paper with an intricate series of writing centering around a single word, explosive. Move, the spandex-wearing Junin shouted. Exploding tag. Asuma, Yamato, Guy and Yamato managed to get out of the way, along with 5 of the Anbu, just as the tag detonated, ending the lives of the other 5 Anbu in a violent explosion. Asura Naruto grinned. Apparently, Asuma had forgotten, or did not listen to Kakashi, that his primary element was wind, so blowing back the gunpowder was easy enough with a wind jutsu, followed by an explosive tag, causing Asuma's initial plan to literally blow up in their face. Tantos drawn, the remaining 5 Anbu charged at Asura Naruto, who charged at the 5. As Asuma and the others watched in horror, Asura Naruto knocked the attacking Anbu as if they were not worth the effort, knocking them aside. Judging from the unnatural angles and the blood pooling from their bodies, it was a safe bet to say that they died instantly. Asuma produced his trench knives and focused his chakra into the blades. Guy removed the weights from his legs. Yamato attacked first with his tanto, only to find that it did not affect Asura Naruto in the slightest. Asuma rushed in, hoping that the flying swallow would be enough to cause some damage onto Naruto. Asuma slashed at Asura Naruto, who blocked the attack with his forearm. Sparks kicked off from the metallic arms, but what shocked Asuma was that there was no damage. That's impossible, Asuma thought. The flying swallow can cut through steel. Asura Naruto looked amused as he edged his head to the side. Is that your best, Sarutobi? He taunted. Asuma's response was to launch a punch to the face, of which Asura Naruto calmly caught with one hand. Guy took this moment to blindside Asura Naruto from the side and tried to bumrush in. Without breaking eye contact, Asura Naruto's hand lashed out and caught Guy's neck in an iron grip. Asura Naruto turned his head to Guy, now having lifted a foot off the ground. Wait for your turn, he said, flinging him into Yamato, who tried to attack while he was distracted. The green beast of Konoha and the Mokoden-wielding Anbu captain crashed together in a heap, leaving Asura Naruto to deal with Asuma, having caught his other wrist when the Sandaime's son tried to punch him yet again. Asura Naruto looked at the trench knife, then back at a defiant Asuma. I remember those knives, he mused. I remembered that you tried to kill me with them when I was 6. You killed my mother, you demon bastard. I should have killed you when you were a baby. Asuma spat out. Typical, Asura Naruto said, right before. Crunch. The sound of bones breaking was heard throughout Suna. Inside the cage tower, The Inoshika Cho trio and Cell 9 winced at the sound. Asuma screamed as Naruto crushed both his hand and the trench knife with it, rendering both his hand and the knife useless. Asura Naruto dropped Asuma to the ground, the latter's hand and trench knife mangled and bloodied. When he brought his other hand to bear, Naruto responded by snapping his arm at the elbow. As Asuma sank to his knees, Naruto's knee smashed into Asuma's face, breaking his nose and knocking him unconscious. Damn you, you unyouthful demon! Guy shouted as he unlocked 4 of the 8 gates. Asura Naruto kicked Asuma out of the way and beckoned Guy. Come, so I can end you, he said. Like Asuma, Guy was also guilty of assaulting him in his youth. Asura Naruto charged at Guy, only to find himself encased in a tree, courtesy of Yamato and his tree-binding flourishing burial. Did that do it? Yamato whispered to himself, as he stood, knowing full well of the Mokoten's ability to reign in the power of a Biju. Did that stop him? From inside the tree, Asura Naruto gave his reply, no. It did not. Fire release. Deadly tempest. With eyes filled with horror, Yamato and Guy watched as the massive tree was reduced to carbon from the inside out, followed by Asura Naruto charging out of the destroyed tree, which collapsed onto itself, his intended target now clear. Yamato was on the receiving end of a metallic fist crashing against his jaw, breaking it in 3 places, which was followed by a kick to the sternum which sent him crashing through a wall, putting him out of commission. Guy, now having unlocked 7 of the 8 gates, moved in to combat Asura Naruto. With Asuma and Yamato out of commission, it was now up to him to take down the demon. You will pay for your unyouthfulness, demon! Guy shouted as he knocked Asura Naruto into the air, high above Suna. As Guy launched himself after him, he followed through with the reverse lotus, unleashing a vicious barrage of punches and kicks. To anyone who had seen Guy and his former student perform the reverse lotus, the technique would be finished off with either Guy or Lee hitting their opponent with 1 fist and 1 foot, resulting in terminal velocity for the unfortunate person on the receiving end. That, however, was not going to happen. As Guy attempted to deal the final blow, Asura Naruto disappeared. And reappeared behind Guy. Hands interlocked and raised over his head, Asura Naruto dealt the green beast of Konoha a vicious hammer punch that sent him back to Suna, where he made an impact crater upon landing. But Asura Naruto was not finished just yet. Upon returning to the streets via Shunshin, Asura Naruto strode over to Guy, who was trying to get back to his feet, and failing, as unlocking the 7 gates had depleted most of his chakra. Standing over the fallen Guy, Asura Naruto looked down in triumph. Not so fun when the demon brat fights back, isn't it? He taunted as Guy tried to crawl away. You sent me to the hospital many times following you, using me as a punching bag for your Guken techniques. He raised 1 sandal-ed foot. You thought I had forgotten that, haven't you? Naruto, please, show mercy, Guy pleaded. The gods show mercy. To those who tried to kill me as a child, I show none, Asura Naruto said, right before slamming it down onto Guy's spine. Guy screamed as he felt his spinal cord snap in several places. Your shinobi career is over, Maida Guy. See if you can get Tsunade to fix your back. Maida Guy whimpered as he tried to use his legs, but could not. The pain became too great, causing him to pass out. Looking at the carnage surrounding him, Asura Naruto felt a small measure of revenge. His battle was over. With a poof, he dispersed himself. With Naruto and Sasuke, Sasuke Uchiha was furious. He was an Uchiha, an elite, one of the strongest shinobi in Konoha. He wielded the Magankyu Sharingan. He was trained by both Kakashi Hatake and Danzo Shimura. All of Konoha had recognized his strength. Then there was his former teammate. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki, the demon of Konoha, the fox in human skin, the dead last. When Naruto was banished, he was pardoned. Despite his loss and that he used the cursed seal, Sasuke had claimed his greatness, saying that Naruto would have lost were it not for the 9 tails in his body. But as Sasuke was given anything and everything he wanted, Naruto had to work hard for what he had. While Sasuke lived a relatively peaceful life as Konoha's prince, Naruto had fought in the West, making alliances and forging an empire under his rule, bringing about a peace that has not been seen since the time of his ancestor, the Six-Path Sage. Simply put, Naruto had surpassed the self-proclaimed elite Uchiha. Naruto would admit that he had gotten lucky at the Valley of the End. But following their fight in Tea Country, it had become clear that Naruto was the strongest of the two. And once Sasuke knew that the Emperor and the Dobi was one and the same, it had pretty much enraged him. Naruto had no problem mixing it up with his own blade, which was why he and the Uchiha were currently in the middle of a vicious sword duel. Naruto effectively neutralized both Jiraiya and Tsunade. Sharingan versus Rinnegan, the Emperor versus the Elite. How are you so damn strong? Sasuke snarled as he and Naruto locked blades. You can't be this strong, Dobi. I am an Uchiha. That strength should be mine. How is it you are so damn strong? Why can't my hatred defeat you? I earned my strength through hard work. Even now, I don't use my Rinnegan as a crutch, Naruto replied, right before headbutting the Uchiha, followed by a roundhouse to the jaw, knocking him to the ground. That is the difference between us. There is no hatred, only passion. Through passion, I find strength. Naruto continued to deflect and parry Sasuke's attacks as he continued to speak, reciting what Sanshi had told him when he learned the ways of the samurai. Through strength, I gain knowledge. Through knowledge, comes serenity. He backhanded the Uchiha, busting his lip. There is no chaos within me, only harmony. Through harmony, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. You talk too damn much. Sasuke shouted. And you have learned nothing, Naruto replied as the battle intensified. The two former teammates turned enemies' flurry of swordplay. Sasuke's shinobi swordplay and Naruto's samurai and mist swordsmanship intensified, until the two men ended up in a second blade lock. Your power, give it to me, shouted the Uchiha prince, activating the Sharingan. Naruto broke off the blade lock with a headbutt to Sasuke, which was followed by him planting both feet into Sasuke's chest, knocking him backwards. Naruto sheathed his Okatana. You can't win, Sasuke, he said as his opponent stood up. You're better off just giving up. I have long since surpassed you. I proved that at the Valley of the End. I proved it again in Tea Country. And I proved it here. I have nothing else to prove to you. Sasuke's eyes were closed. No, you're wrong, Dobi. Naruto had a pretty good idea as to what was going to happen next, as he watched bloody tears emerge from his eyes. He steeled himself for Sasuke's final trump card. Sasuke's eyes opened, revealing the Magankyu Sharingan. Prove to me that you can die. Amaterasu. The strongest of the fire release jutsu and the strongest jutsu that an Uchiha can master. The flames of Amaterasu are said to be the fires of hell, hot as the sun, and said to be unavoidable, the flames capable of burning everything in its path, reducing whatever is caught in the flames to nothing but ash. Naruto's response to Sasuke's attack was to activate his Rinnegan, falling back into the Diva path. Shinra Tensei. Sasuke's eyes showed complete shock as the black flames were extinguished. In a futile gesture, he raised his hands to block the incoming pressure wave, only to find himself once again on the receiving end of the Shinra Tensei, Naruto's jutsu flinging him back into a wall. Naruto was upon him in an instant. One punch to the sternum had caused Sasuke to cough up blood. This was followed by Naruto unloading a vicious barrage of punches into Sasuke's chest and torso, Sasuke's body jerking like a rag doll with each blow. The coup de grace came with Naruto punching Sasuke through the wall. Looks like I win again, Naruto said smugly. Turning from the mangled Uchiha, Naruto walked back into the street. Then he stopped and turned around. Sasuke, despite being badly injured, stumbled out of the hole Naruto had made with his body. Dobi, we are not done yet. I'll give you this much. You're persistent, Naruto admitted, but the battle is over. You lost. The Sannin lost. It's over. Damn you. Damn you. Sasuke snarled as the cursed seal went into overdrive as he went into stage 2 of the cursed seal. His skin turned into a shade of dark gray, the lips a shade of blue. A black 4-point star-like mark appeared in between his eyes, above the bridge of his nose. His hair had gotten longer, ending at his waist. The eyes no longer had the Sharingan. The sclerae turned black, the irides now yellow. Last, were the large webbed hand-shaped wings on his back. Die Naruto! Sasuke screamed as he rose into the air, right before diving at Naruto, claws outstretched, ready to rip Naruto apart. Had Sasuke been paying any attention, he would have noticed the smirk on Naruto's face. Or the ball of chakra-infused lightning in his hand. Imperial style. Chidori. Sasuke's eyes bulged out of its sockets as Naruto nailed him with Kakashi's signature assassination jutsu, payback for Sasuke doing the same to him. The Uchiha prince screamed as the electricity coursed through his body, playing haywire with his chakra and nervous systems, and leaving a fist-sized hole in his shoulder, the same spot where Sasuke had done to Naruto years earlier, not to mention giving the people watching this fight a good view of his skeleton. The force of the Chidori sent Sasuke sailing back to the mangled remains of Konoha's shinobi. Tsunade and Sakura had their hands full. Sakura wanted to go after Naruto, but Tsunade had ordered her to remain behind to help with the wounded. Asuma's hand was mangled, the other arm broken. Kurenai and Shino had been poisoned by Hinata, while Kiba and Akamaru had several broken bones. Guy's shinobi career was pretty much over, as his back was shattered. Yamato also had several broken bones, and Jiraiya's arm was severed. This battle was over. You used the Chidori on me back at the Valley of the End, Naruto said as Sasuke returned to normal. Consider us even. He turned from Tsunade and the others. Hinata, having watched the fight from the sidelines, walked over to greet her husband properly. However, in her rush, she did not see Kakashi emerge from the restaurant from where he was fighting Zabuza moments earlier, having won his battle. Seeing as how Naruto had won, Kakashi did the only thing he could do. He targeted Naruto's wife. Rakiri. Naruto saw that Kakashi had Hinata in his sights. If Konoha came out as the loser in this conflict, then the Emperor would be without his wife. Kakashi was fast, but Naruto was faster. He performed a flash step, closing the distance and shoving Hinata out of the way, just as Kakashi's Rakiri struck Naruto square in the chest. Sharingan spinning, Kakashi saw that he did not kill Hinata, but he did catch Naruto. Tsunade and Jiraiya, despite being badly injured, looked upon the scene with grim satisfaction. Perhaps now Minato and Kushina could finally rest in peace with their killer dead. With this act, the Empire would be robbed of their emperor. I got you, demon, Kakashi grated. I finally got you. However, the look on Naruto's face was not disbelief that Kakashi had tried to kill him, but rather amusement. As Naruto rushed to intercept Kakashi's Rakiri, he had activated the Preta path, which allowed him to take the full brunt of Kakashi's Rakiri without the effect of death. Kakashi's look of triumph turned to one of total shock as Naruto absorbed the jutsu. Even Tsunade and Jiraiya saw that Naruto was still alive, and not dead on his feet. It was because of this development that Kakashi did not notice his impending doom coming from behind. Thwack! Kakashi's eyes bulged as he felt pain. Looking down, he saw the familiar shape of a massive sword sticking a foot out of his chest. Kakashi's eyes widened in horror as he recognized the blade, stained with his blood. The Kubikiribocho. No. Zabuza whispered from behind as he yanked his blade out of Kakashi, having got the jump on Naruto's former sensei. I got you, Hitaki. Zabuza. How? Kakashi gasped. Water clone, was all that Zabuza had said. You really thought that you suckered me, didn't you? You forgot about my water clones. During the fight inside the restaurant, Zabuza had retreated into the kitchen, broken the kitchen sink and used its water to create a reinforced water clone, of which he sent after Zabuza. Naruto had warned him of the Sharingan's abilities, and now the demon of Kimen was thankful that he had listened to the Emperor's advice. All he had to do was wait for the perfect time to strike. And it came when Kakashi tried to kill Naruto with the Rakiri. Naruto and Hinata backed off several steps as Kakashi turned around, and looked into the face of the man thought to have been sent to the other dimension by the Kamui. Kakashi was looking into the face of his executioner. He was dead either way, as the wound Zabuza had delivered to him was mortal. For the crimes of betraying both the Uzumaki clan and my father, your sentence is death, Hitaki, Naruto coldly decreed. Turning to Kakashi, he gave his former sensei his parting words as Zabuza raised Kubikiribocho, savoring the look of horror mixed with fear as he knew what was coming. Death comes for us all, Hitaki. But when you die, something far worse awaits you. The blade of the head-chopping cleaver slashed its way through flesh, muscle and bone. Kakashi's head fell forward, while the body keeled over, the stump spilling blood in the street, the body twitching before finally going still. Kakashi Hitaki was dead, which is that you die with no honor, Naruto finished. Turning to Zabuza, he asked, happy now? Zabuza nodded. Very. Naruto turned to the injured Konoha shinobi. Sasuke had reverted back to human form following the Chidori to the chest and was being tended to by Sakura. Hinata made a signal, and the Imperial forces converged onto the scene, weapons drawn. Our battle is finished here, Naruto intoned. Take your wounded and leave my sight. Tsunade, now having stabilized Jiraiya, glared at her former godson. This isn't over, Naruto, shouted the godime. This is nothing but petty hatred and vengeance on your end. For the moment, it is over, Naruto replied. You call this hatred. I call it retribution. You say this is vengeance. This is justice. But this is only the beginning, you hag. This is the beginning of the end for the Leaf. Go back to Konoha and tell them that the dead last has returned. Tell them that as the yellow flash brought Konoha's rise to power, the Emperor of the Six Paths will bring about its reckoning. Either leave under your own power, or I can send you back in a box. Make your choice now. Tsunade wanted to fight to the bitter end, to go out fighting. But Jiraiya needed immediate medical attention and her Junin were grievously injured. The Imperial forces parted, making a path for the beaten and wounded Konoha shinobi to pass through with the help of the surviving Junin who were kept from the battle at Blade Point, Tsunade giving one final hate-filled glare at Naruto, now placing the cage-style hat back on his head and walking away from the battle, Hinata at his side. As Tsunade and the Konoha shinobi departed from Suna, a fourth party, unknown to either Konoha, Suna or the Imperial West, made his own escape. A white-haired shinobi with glasses. Otogakure, Rice Country, several days later. Inside his laboratory, Orochimaru was going over some notes in regards to his new test subjects when Kabuto came running in, out of breath. Without looking up from his notes, he said, "You're a week late, Kabuto. I hope you have a very good reason as to why you are behind schedule." The Snake Sage had ordered Kabuto to investigate the Akatsuki's movements, which had led Kabuto to Suna. There, disguised as a Suna Junin, Kabuto had witnessed the deaths of both Deidara and Sasori at the hands of the Emperor and Empress consort. But before Kabuto could leave, Suna was placed under martial law, the civilians evacuated to several fallback spots. Then the Akatsuki invaded, and Kabuto ended up fighting alongside Suna and the Imperial forces against the Six Paths and their 100,000 white Zetsu army. Kabuto had a first-hand look as to how the Imperial forces, shinobi and samurai, fight. He also got a good glimpse of how the Imperial Medic Corps went about their work. But most important, he knew the identities of the emperor and his wife, and of their connection to Konoha. To Orochimaru, the Western Empire was an unknown to him. Upon hearing about the Pekara outpost in Wind Country 6 months earlier, he had sent Kabuto to investigate. What Kabuto had managed to find out was that a high-ranking official and his wife had conducted inspections on the Pekara branches in the elemental countries. Grudgingly, he had to admit that the Imperials were strong, especially the man in black's commander of his elite unit of bodyguards. I know I am behind on my time, Kabuto panted. There is a development. The Akatsuki has been destroyed. That caught Orochimaru's interest. Explain. And Kabuto told him what had happened. He told his master about the Akatsuki invasion of Suna, of how Konan and the Six Paths led the surviving members of the Akatsuki and 100,000 White Zetsu clones against a joint force of Suna shinobi and 4 battalions of Imperial shinobi and samurai, and of how despite being outnumbered 2-1, the joint Suna Imperial forces were victorious. There's more, Kabuto continued. I know the identity of the Akatsuki mastermind. It was not Nagato as we originally expected. You knew him as Tobi, but in truth, his real name is Obito Uchiha. Orochimaru was surprised. So there were 2 Uchihas in the Akatsuki, interesting. Continue. The Akatsuki were killed to the last man, Kabuto said. Hidan, Kazuku, Konan, Nagato, Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hoshigaki. Obito had been captured alive and will face execution upon being sent to the Western Empire. One less headache for me, the Snake Sanin said. Anything else? Kabuto grinned. Yes. The Emperor and his wife. I know who they are. Not wanting to keep his master in suspense, he told him. The Emperor is the one who was banished for doing his job. The Emperor is Sasuke Uchiha's former teammate, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. If Orochimaru was surprised before, this took the cake. Are you telling me that the Emperor himself is Naruto Uzumaki? The dead last. Kabuto nodded. His parents were Sarutobi's successor and the Red Death herself. That gave Orochimaru pause. As a former Konoha shinobi and 1/3 of the legendary Sannin, he knew of Tsunade's family history involving the Uzumaki and the Senju. Mito Uzumaki was wife to Hashirama Senju, and Tsunade was her granddaughter. Kushina Uzumaki was Tsunade's niece. Kabuto immediately caught on, and Naruto Uzumaki is Tsunade's great-nephew. Orochimaru cackled. Tsunade, in her infinite wisdom, banished her great-nephew. They screwed over the direct descendant of the Six Paths sage. So who is his wife? The former Hyuga heiress. Hinata Hyuga. From what I found out, she is the founder of the Western Empire's Imperial Medic program there. I hate to say it, but the Imperial program is a lot more advanced. And speaking of Tsunade, Orochimaru stopped laughing. What? She came to Suna hoping to get back on Gaara's good side in fighting with Suna, and to try and negotiate an alliance with the Emperor. Backing her was Jiraiya, several of their senior Junin and several of Naruto's former teammates, including Sasuke Uchiha. Uzumaki has gotten strong. Even stronger than the Uchiha. His wife as well. They both had come a long way since Konoha. I bet that the reunion did not go as well, Orochimaru mused. That is an understatement, Kabuto replied. Tsunade had sicked Kakashi and the other Junin on the both of them. Out of everyone, Maeda Guy, Asuma Sarutobi, Jiraiya, and Sasuke had it the worst. Sarutobi suffered a broken hand and a broken arm. Maeda Guy, well, his shinobi career is effectively over. Jiraiya lost his arm, and Sasuke, despite using the cursed seal, ended up with a Chidori in his chest. Uzumaki did all of that? Orochimaru asked. When Kabuto nodded, Orochimaru added as an afterthought, well, it's a good thing that he hates Konoha as much as I do. I actually feel a little better with him not agreeing to our alliance, not to mention losing to his captain of the guard. Kakashi Hatake is dead, Kabuto reported. Naruto killed him. No. Zabuza Mamachi, the demon of the mist, took his head. Orochimaru took a moment to take all of the news in. This might work to our advantage. If there is one thing I can count on, is that dear Sasuke cannot stand the fact that someone like Naruto is stronger than him. I may be able to get my body just yet. Should I organize a retrieval team and intercept him from Tsunade and the others? No, I can wait a while longer. What about Naruto and the Western Empire? Orochimaru thought about it for a moment. It's clear that we are not on Naruto and Hinata's radar, and that they hate Konoha as much as we do. So we will leave them and their merchants along for the time being. Send word to the Raikage. Uzumaki and the Western Empire is off limits. His smile grew sinister. But if Sasuke refuses to come to my side, I can always be an emperor. Konohagakure no Sato. At the same time, it had been midnight when Tsunade and the remains of her forces had returned to Konoha. Since that time, she, along with Shizune and Sakura, had been hard at work stabilizing the badly injured shinobi, even going as far as taking a soldier pill in order to keep working. As she had been busy with Jiraiya, Shizune and Sakura had been tasked along with the doctors in treating the injured shinobi, as well as compiling a casualty list of the Anbu who were killed. Konoha Hospital, dawn. Shizune and Sakura gave their reports to Tsunade, who had just finished treating Jiraiya. 16 Anbu dead, Sakura reported as she handed Tsunade a scroll. Here are their names. Kakashi Hatake Kia. Tsunade nodded grimly. She had brought 200 Junin-level shinobi with her to Suna, and yet when Naruto and Hinata had used their forces to block them from interfering at Blade and Jutsu Point. Seeing as how the Junin were outnumbered and outmatched, the remaining Junin had no choice but to comply. Tsunade found them outside Suna, and ordered them to help with the wounded and the dead, after demoting them to Chunin. They were not allowed to take Kakashi's body, as that was incinerated in one of the many pyres outside of Suna. And the others? Tsunade asked. Shizune went over her notes. Out of the group that was attacked by Uzumaki and his wife, Kurenai Sarutobi and Shino Aburame were affected by an unknown type of poison which makes the chakra and nervous systems go haywire. It's not lethal, but it is extremely effective. Were you able to get samples? Tsunade asked. Sakura shook her head. The poison works pretty fast. Despite taking blood samples from both Sarutobi and Aburame, there was no poison in their system. Either way, both of them will be out of action for about a week until they recover. Considering what has happened to the others, they got off lucky. And the others? First up is Maida Guy, Shizune reported. There was too much damage from where Uzumaki had crushed his spine. He won't be able to walk again. His shinobi career is finished. Tsunade nodded grimly. Continue. Asuma Sarutobi's right hand was crushed, along with his trench knife, which proved to be quite a challenge for the doctors to remove without having to remove the hand altogether, Shizune said. We were able to save his hand, but every bone in his finger has been broken. He also has a broken left arm at the elbow. He's looking at several months of recovery. Sakura continued after that. Kiba Inuzuka has suffered several broken bones, including those in his left leg, a broken radius and a broken wrist. Akamaru had been placed in the care of the Inuzuka vets. Yamato's jaw is broken in 3 places, and a fractured chest bone. Sasuke Uchiha was the worst off. A Chidori-sized hole in his chest, half of the ribs are either broken or fractured, and the electricity from the jutsu has overloaded his nervous system and chakra reserves. How long will he be out? Tsunade asked. A month. Month and a half at the most, Sakura replied. What about you? Are you okay? That brat gave me a concussion when he suplexed me, Tsunade grated. Jiraiya? We couldn't save his arm. He died on me twice, but I managed to revive him. She sighed in frustration. How in the hell could he have gotten so powerful? Sensei made sure that we conditioned him, not to mention that we stunted his growth. He was always the unpredictable one, Sakura admitted. He beat Kiba and Neji in the exams. He should not have that kind of power, Sakura, Shizune said. Such power could be turned against us in the long run. If there is anything I know about the Uzumaki, is that they never forget who wrongs them. You forget that I am also of the Uzumaki, as Mito was my grandmother, Tsunade pointed out. But first and foremost, I am a Senju. Naruto has made it clear that he is a major threat to the Leaf. The bodies of Hitaki and the Anbu Slan has made that point very clear. Monitor Jiraiya and the others. I must tell the council that Uzumaki and the West is now a certified threat. Shizune and Sakura nodded as Tsunade vanished down the corridor. Underneath Konohagakure, hours later. Inside his inner sanctum, Danzo Shimura was furious. The Sharingan in his eye was spinning, his body leaking killer intent. The man known as the Darkness of Shinobi had just returned from an emergency council meeting, in which Tsunade had delivered some devastating news. Naruto Uzumaki was the Emperor of the West. The dead last, the Kyuubi brat, was the most powerful man on the Western continent. The same Naruto Uzumaki who had killed Hanmura and Koharu over a year ago. The same Naruto Uzumaki who had rendered him helpless inside his own underground chambers. The same Naruto Uzumaki who can lead an army into Konoha and crush it under his heel. People change in the 7 years following their banishment, as Danzu's co-conspirators found out the hard way. The council had been in an uproar when the revelation was revealed. The civilian side of the council wanted Tsunade to declare war on the empire, or by extension, their allies in spring, water and wind. That idea was shot down by the clans, as they would be outnumbered 5-1. But Danzo still could not do anything, as Naruto still had the evidence pertaining to the stolen bloodlines he had on his person, lest he earned the wrath of the Godime and the last Uchiha. All he could do now is plan. Omake. Hokuto no Naruto. Snafu's notes. Kudos to Azure Dragon of the East for inspiring this idea via PM. Naruto's response to Sasuke's attack was to activate his Rinnegan, falling back into the Diva path. Shinra. Tensai. Sasuke's eyes showed complete shock as the black flames were extinguished. In a futile gesture, he raised his hands to block the incoming pressure wave, only to find himself once again on the receiving end of the Shinra Tensai, Naruto's jutsu flinging him back into a wall. Naruto was upon him in an instant. One punch to the sternum had caused Sasuke to cough up blood. This was followed by Naruto unloading a vicious barrage of punches into Sasuke's chest and torso, Sasuke's body jerking like a rag doll with each blow. The coup de grace came with Naruto punching Sasuke through the wall. Looks like I win again, Naruto said smugly. Turning from the mangled Uchiha, Naruto walked back into the street. Then he stopped and turned around. Sasuke, despite being badly injured, stumbled out of the hole Naruto had made with his body. Dobi, we are not done yet. I'll give you this much. You're persistent, Naruto admitted, but the battle is over. You lost. The Sannin lost. It's over. Damn you. Damn you. Sasuke snarled as the cursed seal went into overdrive as he went into stage 2 of the cursed seal. His skin turned into a shade of dark gray, the lips a shade of blue. A black 4-point star-like mark appeared in between his eyes, above the bridge of his nose. His hair had gotten longer, ending at his waist. The eyes no longer had the Sharingan. The sclerae turned black, the irides now yellow. Last, were the large webbed hand-shaped wings on his back. Die Naruto! Sasuke screamed as he rose into the air, right before diving at Naruto, claws outstretched, ready to rip Naruto apart. Had Sasuke been paying any attention, he would have noticed the smirk on Naruto's face. Or the fact that his killer intent was radiating from his body like a flame, literally burning off his haori, flak vest and mesh shirt, revealing his own scarred torso. Think the scars which Kazuya Mishima has, sans the large scar on his chest. The Emperor met him in midair, his foot smashing against the demonic-looking Uchiha's face, knocking him back. As Sasuke got back to his feet, Naruto struck. A tata 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 tata. Crunch 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 crunch. As Tsunade and Jiraiya watched in complete shock and awe, Naruto unleashed a massive barrage of punches with both hands, striking at the Uchiha's 708 acupressure points. To anyone watching this, it was as if Naruto had moved at an inhuman speed, even faster than Rock Lee and Guy combined as he pummeled Sasuke with his fists, the Uchiha's body jerking around violently like a rag doll from the impact of the blows. Then Naruto switched from his hands to one foot, kicking Sasuke just as fast. Quote dot dot dot. Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Crunch 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 crunch. Right before resuming punching him again, only this time with one hand, not slowing down. Quote dot dot dot. Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Crunch 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 crunch. And Naruto returned to using his other hand like he had done earlier at the start of the technique. Wata. Ka pow. The final blow had knocked Sasuke ass overhead, crashing in front of Tsunade and Jiraiya. Imperial style. 100 crack fist, Naruto said as he retrieved his cage-style hat. With a flourish, he placed it on his head, turned around and began to walk away. It's over for you, Sasuke. Dobi. Once again, Naruto stopped in mid-step, but did not turn around. Sasuke, still in stage 2, got back to his feet, shrugging off Tsunade's attempts to help him. We're not done yet, Dobi. He shouted as he coughed up blood. Don't you turn your back on me. Slowly, Naruto turned his head. I got 4 words for you, Tem. Ome wa mo shindiru. You are already dead. Is that so? Sasuke snarled back, taking a step forward, then paused as his body began to jerk and twitch violently. Sasuke screamed as he felt his body's internal organs begin to break down, his head swelling to inhuman proportions, the hair falling out of his deformed skull. His torso also began to swell as he fell to his knees. Uzu. Uzumaki. Boom. That was Sasuke's final word as his head literally exploded, with his body following soon afterward. All that remained of Sasuke was everything from the waist down, splattering Tsunade and Jiraiya with bits and pieces of gore. Sasuke's legs twitched before finally going still. Damn it, Naruto cursed. That was the 3rd vest and Haori I destroyed this week. Now I need a new one.